Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Marvel Mania. Tis I, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my wonderful co-host, DJ Martinez.
Hey everyone, how's it going?
DJ, are you ready for another behemoth of a superhero movie?
Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Sorry, we've been watching commercials for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that song is really, really burning into my mind. I do not like it.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I can't say if I'm ready. I don't know yet. I guess we'll just have to do this and find out. I don't think people can hear you. Give me 1 second.
Oh.
There was one setting I forgot to set. You should be good now.
Testing, testing.
Yeah, there he is. All right,
there
folks.
He is.
Tonight it's the third to last movie in this batch of Marvel Manias. We're going to take a long break from these after the last two X-Men movies. Oh, you're wearing your gold Marvel Mania shirt. I'm jealous of that one. I love that. It looks great. Or gold, silver.
Yeah, I mean, I could send you one, but we've only got 3 left now. Maybe phase 3 we'll have to.
Yeah, maybe when we bring it back. Yeah, phase 3. Yeah, we should have been talking about these in phases all. Maybe you have been, and I haven't picked up on that yet.
I think I have.
So tonight, Endgame, which is really weirdly following for us this weekend everything we just did on the Snyder Cut. Dates this commentary, but in this moment of time, that's what we've been dealing with. So we had to watch, or at least I did, a 4-hour movie twice, only to turn around and watch a 3-hour movie twice.
That's how it goes.
This did feel significantly shorter.
The suffering we go through for you guys, you don't even know.
Seriously, no, it's worth it, though. Absolutely. So we're going to watch Avengers Endgame. This movie needs no introduction, of course, and we already did its introduction a couple months ago, regardless of the fact that neither of us remembered that we did it. We had this bizarre panic moment where we were like, oh, we forgot to do Infinity War. How did we skip that? And then it was like, no, we did that.
Yep. We're just dumb.
Both of us had collective amnesia. It was very strange. So I'm going to do my level best not to repeat everything I said in that commentary, because I don't remember what I said in that commentary. Apparently, I forgot we did it.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have enough to say about this one. Or else, this is kind of a revisit your greatest hits moment, so we'll just be revisiting our other commentaries. We'll just pretend it's on theme.
So this will be fun. I'm looking forward to watching this with you guys, and it'll like always with these things, I'm going to try really hard not to just repeat everything I've ever said about this and see if some other things happen to come up, but we'll go back and retread a few things from spoiler casts and stuff and see if we feel the same way we used to about things. If we have any new reads on things or new opinions about stuff. We'll be taking questions and comments throughout, letting you guys help us direct the conversation. So if you want to leave a super chat in any dollar amount, that will guarantee that your question or comment gets read, and leave other comments if you want to, and we will attack as much of that stuff as possible. We won't attack you, but we'll attack the questions in that we'll be dealing with them. Get out your DVD, Blu-ray, your Disney Plus, however you want to watch the movie. Get it past menus. Get it to timestamp 0. I assume DJ and I are both watching it on Disney Plus. And get ready to press play when I say now. 3 hours and 3 minutes. I think 2 hours and 50 minutes of movie proper, and then of course lots of credits. What edition of that do you have?
Just the usual digipack that they were doing at the time for the 4K editions. Pretty nice, pretty standard. Looks just like the Infinity War one and the Captain Marvel one and the Ragnarok one. But
well, it's nice that there's some uniformity there.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, they've gone through so many changes. I mean, Paramount was putting them out when they first started the MCU, so it's the cases have been all over the place. But
that Thor picture is false advertising. That's not what he looks like in that movie.
No, it's not. They got to keep that hilarity under wraps.
Yeah.
Can't spoil that. Funny.
Somebody said anime, according to Captain DJ, Infinity War is a really forgettable film. It's not. I love Infinity War. I just didn't remember that we had done the commentary yet. I don't know how that happened. It was very strange. We thought we screwed up royally.
No, we were upset with ourselves, and our spouse was like, "No, you did it. It's you already did it, guys."
Get ready to have your mind blown and feel even older than you did already, DJ. Endgame is now officially, in the next couple of months, old enough to be tackled on Superhero Rewind. Now, I'm not going to do it this year, but it is already old enough that I could officially go ahead and do it now if I wanted to.
2 years. That's insane.
It's ridiculous. I don't know where the time goes. But we had an entire year without any superhero movies.
I know. So you would think that would at least make it feel a little longer instead of shorter, because there's been nothing else to distract us nerds, but still feels quick.
Blue Dragon 5 says, looks like that for 20 minutes. No, he doesn't, though, because when you get to the end, he's got the, like, twisted beard thing. Like, he never
No,
has
he's saying
that
before
one.
the 5 year.
Oh, I see what you're saying at the beginning. I guess that's true. I guess at the beginning he does have that.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I forgot he was in very much of that. But yeah, he is there at the beginning, obviously. Okay, Anime, did you really love Infinity War, Cap? You spent a lot of the commentary complaining about Thanos. Well, yeah, I mean, I've got Thanos issues, absolutely, but like by and large, I like that movie a lot. Maybe love is too strong of a word. I don't know. I'm not gonna take the time to review the movie again right here before we get started. I enjoy that movie immensely. I am frustrated with the way Thanos was handled, and I don't think they stuck the landing on that. But obviously that'll come up again in this a little bit. I'll try not to just repeat everything I said. Here we go. Let's go ahead and get started. Everybody, please press play. I hope you're ready. Hope you got your finger on the button right now.
Starts so abruptly.
It sure does.
Like when we started it last night to watch it with my wife, we were like, "Whoa, what happened? Did we miss something? Did we miss the intro? Like, we have to go back. There's like nothing, no logos."
I remembered this in the theater, but this is not the first Marvel movie to do that. Civil War has the same thing, and I think there's some other movies that might as well. But I remember when I saw Civil War the first time, thinking that we had missed logos and stuff, because I don't know that it had happened before that, and I got to see that movie 2 weeks early, so I didn't trust it at all. I was like, oh, they screwed up the reel, with the early thing.
That's right, I remember that. Yeah, and I'm not talking about the Avengers logo, because of course I know they do that a lot.
Yeah, of course.
There's like not even any studio logos, just right there.
That was true of Civil War too, if memory serves, though. I think it also did a cold open. Maybe there was a logo. I'm pretty sure it did a cold open. This is a good choice, of course, for a movie to do a cold open with, because it's a wonderfully tense scene. I mean, I think from minute one, when you're waiting to see the aftermath of the blip, and because Hawkeye wasn't in the last movie at all, you've got to know what's about to happen. You got to walk into this going, oh, okay, he's going to lose his whole family, and of course, I expected that because I was pretty sure they were going to do the whole Ronin thing, and I figured, like, this kind of wrote itself. Like, as soon as I saw his... Well, not even before I saw his family. I think a lot of us guessed at this. There's, okay, he lost his family in the blip, and that's going to make him go postal, and that's exactly what happens.
Yeah, really heartbreaking stuff. Especially because... and it's... I mean, for us... I don't know how much, if it has the same impact on like normal moviegoers, because his family was in Age of Ultron, which was a long time ago, and a lot of people didn't like that movie, so it might not have the same impact, but I remember that scene. That was a great scene.
Even if you didn't remember that, I think that's certainly a rough scene if you liked that character at all.
Yeah.
But I like that choice. It is distracting to me now, knowing that it makes no sense that scene takes place during the daytime. Because it's daytime on the other side of the world when people get blipped there, so it should not be daytime where he is right now. It makes no sense.
Oh, surprise! His farm is actually in Africa.
I'm on the fence about, or not on the fence, but I'm mixed on the downtime stuff in this movie. Because I like that it takes its time as much as it does, but some of it is just kind of awkward humor for the sake of itself, that MCU humor thing that people had a problem with well before I did, and I'm now on the bandwagon of, yeah, there's a little too much of that. But, like, some of it like this I like a lot. And one of my favorite things about this movie is unlikely pairings. Putting Tony and her together is not a thing I would have expected, and that's kind of fun.
Yeah,
I guess they have to be, given where we were last movie, but I wouldn't have thought of it. Oh yeah, and he's gonna have to pal around with Nebula for a while.
Well, yeah, and no one expected Nebula to be like the breakout star of Endgame. Like, what? So weird, but really cool. She does great.
She kind of is. She is really good in this. and seeing her play the
It's pretty
subtly
central.
different you know like more heroic version of her at the same time as she's playing the evil 2014 version is also fun.
Yeah. And thankfully, the Guardians 2 version is nowhere to be seen. No fruit jokes.
Well, Rohit, that's true. I mean, the daytime thing was already a problem because he says when Nick Fury and Hill are blipped, same with Hank, Janet, and Hope in that movie. Yeah, that's a good point. Doesn't make it less of a problem though. It should not be daytime. It should be nighttime. I just find it amusing to complain about that.
Yeah, people get really mad when we do like little nitpicks like that, but we're not.
It's a 3-hour commentary.
We gotta fill the air, man. We're not seriously complaining. It doesn't ruin the movie for us. It's just fun to bring up stuff like that when you're talking about the movie scene by scene like this.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend too long talking about this. This has been coming up a lot lately. When things, stack up a lot, it means that a writer and director might not be doing their jobs enough. Where there's a lot of lack of attention to detail and lack of internal logic and stuff. But I don't, Doc. I don't decide an entire movie is terrible because I found a plot hole.
I like that. Move on with enormous guilt. This was interesting. We didn't necessarily have to do this. Like, he didn't have to be stranded in space for weeks and like almost starve to death. But it's a nice touch.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would argue that this is a very, very Tony Stark thing to do, especially after things like Iron Man 3, where we keep taking him to his, lowest point physically and putting a lot on top of him and seeing if he can endure. This is a thing that we do with this, well, I said especially after Iron Man 3, it's the thing we do with him going all the way back. This is how his origin happened. Tony Stark is constantly having to be put through the ringer and through gauntlets to make sure that he still is a hero, because at his core, he is not a heroic character. At his core, Tony Stark only cares about himself, and he's been pushing against that and changing that for years and years, and arguably at this point he is not that character, but the universe is still constantly testing him. We're also doing that because we are foreshadowing the fact that he's going to die in this movie, and we've been teasing the audience, trying to make us think that it might happen earlier than it's going to. We did that at the end of last movie. We're arguably doing it here. I don't know that anybody expects that he'll actually die right at the beginning of the movie, that we'll pull like a X3 and kill him off, the first act, but he is constantly in these kind of death-defying situations where he's in the middle of space because he had a premonition where he would survive and everybody else would die. And so we keep subverting that until it finally happens. And at the end of the day, it actually won't be in space when that happens. I like a lot of the score in this movie. It's scored like an epic. It's scored very often like a kind of old school Hollywood epic in my mind. That was a thought I had on this last viewing, where I don't know, sometimes it's almost like an operatic score. And I don't mean operatic in the sense of like really over the top and super melodramatic, but just it feels like, I said old Hollywood, it feels like stage score sometimes, which I really appreciate. Really melodic stuff.
It's really good. Yeah, it's definitely takes all the percussion out of it, the Zimmerness, I guess, as we call it these days. But I did not know I remember the score. Like, I don't remember the score, but when I listen to it, it like comes right back, and it's like, oh yeah, I do remember the score.
And I didn't look at the credit. I don't remember who this is, but I think it's taking some cues from what we did with the Black Panther score, because it's got a lot of things in common with that. And it's not that the melodies and stuff sound like that. It's that, you remember the scene in Black Panther, DJ, where he goes to, it's that afterlife scene where he is, or afterlife, where he's in the Aurora Borealis with his father, and you got that great string sting that you and I talked about, where, like you said, everything else drops out and it's just that, and then it takes room and it breathes, and there's places where there's no sound at all and then it comes back in. This movie has a lot of that.
Okay. Yeah, Mutali says it's Alan Silvestri, so that makes sense.
Is it Silvestri?
That's really cool that he got to start with First Avenger, go through Avengers, and then finish it up here.
Especially because I don't know that somebody else would have brought back the first Avengers music as much as he does, and he brings that theme back. I think particularly at the end when we give the shield to Falcon, I think it comes back
Yeah,
there.
you have to do that.
You gotta do that. And we're also bringing it back some in Falcon and Winter Soldier now, which I really appreciate.
Oh, that's cool. I still gotta finish that first episode.
I just watched that last night. Yeah, it's interesting watching this right after that and after WandaVision. And I'm sure a couple
Really cool.
things will come up. I won't give anything away about Falcon Winter Soldier, of course, but I did see the first episode last night. We're gonna do a spoiler cast probably this Sunday on the first 2 episodes.
Cool.
So we've got our introduction to see once again, just like really nice kind of moving moments with characters that you don't usually put together. Like I realize that sorry, there's too many characters and I'm coming off of Snyder Cut. But like I
Rocket
realized
and
that
Nebula.
Nebula and Rocket are characters that kind of used to hate each other. But it's unusual to see them in a scene like really kind of emotional moment like that. So we've got Captain Marvel being introduced here, and it is as far as I've read, the actress's introduction to this universe, even though we've all seen Captain Marvel before this, and she shot this stuff first, and you can tell because she seems like kind of a different character, and she's feeling it out, trying to figure out who she is. She seems real kind of stolid to me, and I realized that 20 or like 25 years or whatever past her first movie, she would be a different person, but it doesn't look like a character that has evolved so much as this is actually her starting place.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say she's awful. She just doesn't have much to work with. She just doesn't know what's going. I mean, this is not a great place to drop an actress in. You kind of wish that either that her movie could have been shot first, or she just wasn't in this. like
Yeah, she doesn't really have anything to do besides save Tony. And then
Yeah.
she just kind of leaves, and then she comes back at the end and fights a little bit, but then she doesn't really.
And she's kind of the Deus Ex Machina at the end. You need somebody to take that big ship down.
Yeah.
So this all goes all the way back to Age of Ultron. His argument about suit of armor around the world comes back, and it's interesting because he decided after that movie that he was wrong, and now he's doubling down on it. Now it's back to, I had a point back then, and he kind of did. And this movie makes the Captain America versus Iron Man argument of freedom versus protection a lot more even again, once all of this happens. When he says, just to protect our precious freedoms, well, half of us are gone now. So who cares about that at this point? This is a wonderful scene. I like everything he does in this.
Yeah, this is a great scene.
And he looks anorexic. I don't know exactly how they did that. Like, I don't know if it's just the performance or if they've done some like digital stuff to him to make him, look like he hasn't eaten in 3 months. But like,
Yeah,
he
it's
looks
definitely the same thing they
bad.
did to Captain America. You could, when he was in the ship, you could see his arms were all scrawny because he didn't have a shirt on.
Well, it looks
It's like
good.
it's like the first Avenger effect.
Chill, dude. This is the best Cap versus Tony argument in the MCU. Yeah, I think I agree with that. And it's really sad after Civil War because it was really hard for them to get back together and patch things up, at all. And then this happens. And I guess they never technically did that. And when they kind of let bygones be bygones, when they come back from, the 5 years later.
Yeah, it takes so long.
It's that's also a wonderful scene. And I like that they patch. I like that they patch things up the way they do and as subtle as they do. They don't have to have like a big hug it out moment. They don't cry together, and they do all of that way before Tony ends up dying. Like, you could have been super sappy about it, and there's some kind of sappy stuff in this movie, but you could have been super sappy about it.
Yeah.
And had them, do something kind of tear jerky and eye rolly like right before he dies, and that doesn't happen, which I appreciate. I say there's some sappy stuff in this movie. I think it's more in presentation than in the way the movie's written, and we'll talk about it. I don't know. Maybe retroactively, the "I Love You 3000" thing seems a little bit sappy, but I think that's more because of what the fans did with it.
There's a lot of problems with the MCU because of things that you have heard so many times, but it's only 2 times in the movie, and it's hard to put out everything you've heard on memes and internet when you're just watching the movie.
Yeah, do you agree with me with that? Where there's a lot of things that I don't know if I would even like notice much or question or have a problem with if I didn't hear people talk about it constantly.
Yeah,
if
100%.
I could just take these movies in a vacuum, it'd be a little bit different.
And I do have less of that. I don't really keep up with memes, or like I don't hear it as much as you do, probably because you're on here. But I actually didn't even the "I Love You 3000" thing just like came back to me as I watched this. I didn't even really remember that until I sat down.
That's a great teaser. It's a great line right before you get the logo. I like that a lot. It's wonderful, and it kind of I don't know. It kind of gets you off the beaten path because you figure a lot more of this movie is going to be them going after Thanos than it ends up.
Oh yeah,
being.
this
You don't
totally
realize
caught
that
me
you're
off
still
guard.
very much in the the setup of everything. This is one of my favorite moments in the whole movie. I love it so much. I laughed in the theater. Nobody else did, and I still stand by it. It's great when Rocket goes, "Who here has been to space?" It's so good.
But yeah, this totally caught me off guard. This is like, especially because they set it up so well, or they like set up that she's gonna be the Deus Ex Machina. She's gonna come in and save the day. So you thought that was gonna be the end of the movie. You had no idea that it was gonna like. And then once he dies, it's like, I was like, oh, where the heck is this movie going?
The problem with having her there at all, though, is it looks like we're sending off our biggest gun just because she's too powerful, which is exactly what we're doing. And it would have been better to either introduce her at the end. And I realize that is still a Deus Ex Machina, but I'd almost rather her not be set up at the beginning. Maybe I wouldn't be saying that if that's what we got. Maybe I would be like, you go to an alternate universe and there's a Captain Logan who said, "God, couldn't we have had her at the beginning?" But looking at it, but looking at what we have, I don't know any more about I don't appreciate her any more having her at the beginning here than I would at the end. And having seen Captain Marvel, it makes it worse because I liked her better in that movie. And here she seems a little bit I don't know if sanctimonious is the right word, but there's this attitude about her performance that puts me off. She's got a little bit of this kind of I'm better than all these people sort of attitude, and it's just because the actress hasn't figured out Brie Larson. She just doesn't know what she's doing with that character yet.
Just looked like he was picking the plants that Blue the bear picks in Jungle Book.
Yeah, Blue Dragon 5, I didn't remember that. I said the same thing watching this again in preparation for this. He said putting Cap in the Winter Soldier suit. Nice. Yeah, it was really cool seeing that again. Although I shouldn't be surprised because the Russos call back to that as much as they can get away with in this movie. Because it's going to be their last big hurrah. That's where they started from. They're proud of that movie. They should be proud of that movie. It's one of the best superhero movies of all time. But and I'm getting ahead of myself, but when we get him in that elevator later, just to have a reference to that movie because there's not a stone in that year or at least in that year in that place where it would make sense to go back to that time. It does not work at all, and it makes no sense. And we'll talk about it when we get there.
And then we get really violent. Although it's really weird how we have to do it because there's like no blood that comes out of his head when he cuts off his head.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm a broken record, but it's weird that the first thing they do is they come cut his arm off when they could have done that last movie. And it's really strange that they didn't even try. And then it's like, yeah, it's sort of like they learned their lesson, but you wish there was a conversation about it. Like, somebody should have been like, look, we're going to have to be more like Thanos to beat Thanos. We don't usually just rush in and cut somebody's arm off. But, like, Thor should have had a big conversation about it. Like, why are we being such saps? Like, we need to think more like Asgardians. And I wish there was a conversation, because if we'd had a conversation about it, I would not be complaining about that. If they were like, why didn't we just do this in the first place? but it watches weirdly retroactive, like they heard fans complain about it and then they had him do it here, but they shot these back to back, so that couldn't have been the case, so it makes it way weirder, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think Thor was holding back at all. He hit him right in the chest, which was trying to kill him, so that's worse than cutting his arm off. I just think he was being dumb.
No, but what I mean is he should have had like a rah-rah speech to the rest of the Avengers and been like, you need to fight like I fight. Why I'm talking about in Infinity War. Why weren't we just cutting his arm right off? Because the only explanation for trying to pull the glove off him, the gauntlet off him, is we're heroes, we don't do that kind of thing. It's the only argument.
I think the only thing that could do that was Thor's new hammer, and
they didn't try though. How would they know? How would they know that nothing else would cut his arm off?
I don't know. I mean, all they had was like Quill's guns and Iron Man's lasers, but Iron Man was lasering him. It just wasn't doing anything because he had the Infinity Stones.
But he didn't laser the side of his arm. They didn't even attempt to cut. Like, and we're not talking about the gauntlet itself. We're talking about outside of the gauntlet. Why wouldn't you try to cut his arm off? I've never understood that. You think you have a better shot at pulling him off it? Or pulling it off him than you do cutting his arm off? It's still just weird to me that there's never a conversation about that.
Yeah.
Mutali said they tried pulling his hand off. They tried pulling the glove off his hand.
5 years later.
So,
I like the scene.
It is really cool that we have as much in the way of consequences for all of this as we do in the MCU after this. And I should say, I was worried we wouldn't deal with it enough in the Disney Plus shows so far are doing quite a bit of that, which, yay.
Which is cool, yeah.
God. That is the only thing I'll give away about Falcon Winter Soldier is we're very much about the aftermath, like it has to be, like you would expect. It's really nice that we're dealing with that stuff. And, you know, it's a good compromise because you're not going to kill off a whole bunch of characters. We do like definitively, legitimately lose somebody, and I appreciate that. I still don't like that we had movies with war in the title where nobody died. Like, you know, Infinity War, we lose half the universe, but you know they're coming back. Civil War, we don't kill anybody. It's really weird to have a movie with war in the title and nobody dies. Like I always thought that was strange. I still stand by Rhodey could have died in that movie. And, like, I guess Ye's still around. We haven't done a ton with him. But, like, he would have been the casualty to have in that. Instead, we just made it his leg.
Well, he brings up Hot Tub Time Machine in
this. That's really important, yeah. You needed somebody to make that. This is one of the Russos.
Yeah.
And he's got a nice cameo here. He does a good job. He's got real dramatic chops.
Yeah, it's a great scene. This is exactly what Cap would be doing, just trying to help people. Any small way he could.
Well, and I like that he's in the same role that Sam was at the beginning of Winter Soldier. He's doing kind of the same thing he was doing. Batman rocks. The scene is absolutely beautiful to me with Steve running a therapy circle, still finding ways to help others even out of costume. Yeah, exactly. No, it's great. Mutalia, we need Rhodey for Armor Wars Cap. Yeah, but I knew they were going to do that, and hopefully that's good. If it's not, I'm really going to double down on that. Like, that should have been the casualty in Civil War, not just his leg. But I do like the parallel that we make with him and Nebula in this with their prosthetic parts and how they were both not always like this. That's a nice moment. Here comes the rat that saves the universe. And I've been talking about this a lot lately. I did a rewind a couple months ago, a list video where I brought this up, and some people hadn't thought about it. I got a lot of messages about it, and I saw somebody made a hilarious comment, DJ, that said, I want an episode of What If, where it's what if the rat was blipped?
Well, it would just be sad, depressing, staying dead.
It would be 22 years later. There'd be another rat or like a raccoon. Actually, it'd be great if it was a raccoon.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a gimme. I mean, what are you going to do? It's It's been 5 years. I'm sure there's a lot of animals crawling all over that thing. One of them hits the button. I'll give them that.
I don't know, man. I still cry foul on it a little bit. I think it's really silly.
Well, yeah, it's definitely silly. I'm
You
not saying
you,
it's
you
not.
absolutely could have contrived something less convenient than that. And like I always say, it's not like conveniences don't happen. There's a couple in this. I guess they're kind of problematic. That's the big one. And it'd be better if like somebody he knows or like an actual superhero or something for some believable reason stumbles upon that and is like, oh man, this thing's still active, let's bring him back.
Yeah. Problem is, like, they barely know him. Like, when he sees them again, he's like, "Hey, it was me. I was at the airport. Remember?" So like, no one else knows him. They met him like that one time. He's been so separate from the rest of the MCU. I think
You could have his daughter like, well, I don't know if that would make sense because she would just assume he got blipped, but you could do something. I was gonna say she
yeah,
could like be doing a lot of research and trying to find him, and she stumbles upon that somehow, but
yeah.
that
I'm
doesn't
sure
actually make sense.
you could have done a bunch of things, but I'm sure that they were just like, we need something super super quick. We don't. This movie's so long. We have so much to do. We don't have time. We'll just do some. I'm sure that's what they were thinking. I'm not saying it justifies it,
I
but
think their thought is because it's a whole 5 years, it's more justified. Where if it happened like 30 days later, it would seem
yeah,
a lot more convenient. But because there's that, they think they can get away with a ton of stuff because at least there are actually consequences. Because this whole movie, even though it's 5 years later, I'm on pins and needles on a first viewing going, are they going to hit the reset button? And there's no reason to assume until you get to the end of the movie that we're not still going to wipe all this away. And when we get into time travel stuff, it looks like absolutely their plan is to try to reverse everything. And then we get the wrinkle, which I initially like, and then gets very complicated and doesn't actually make sense, of you can't change the past, so we actually couldn't reset everything even if we wanted to. I like that a lot. They're just not remotely consistent with that. And we'll have to talk about the time travel a little bit, but spoiler alert, I don't think the time travel in this movie makes any sense at all, and I don't think they've given it one iota of thought, so I don't want to think too terribly much about it, but I will throw a couple of wrinkles and questions at it as we get to those things. I feel bad for the little girl that played his daughter before, because she's not going to get to play it again.
yeah.
And she was great, and she was looking forward to getting to be a superhero, because I forget her name, but this character grows up and becomes a superhero, and now she's not going to get to do that, and that's not cool.
Wow.
I like
Yeah,
this. I like this actress, and I think she looks a lot like her.
yeah,
But,
that's cool.
and I
Speaking
think
of the
did I hear that she also is getting written out, and somebody else is going to come in and play her now? I think I heard that, but maybe
I have
that's
no
not
idea.
true. I hope that's not true. I like her.
I have no idea. But yeah, speaking of that, Super Billy gave us 4.99 super chat. Why does the film mock and dismiss time travel tropes to an extent, and to extent explains the mechanics of time travel before blatantly ignoring almost all of it? So we'll talk about that.
I
Sure.
agree with all of that. It absolutely does that. I don't mind it dismissing the tropes because I like the idea that the movie's got it wrong. Here's how it really works. If you do that, you have to have really thought it out, and the mythology has to look. As I've always said with time travel, I'm so tired of talking about time travel things. This is a reason that I'm taking months breaks between the Terminator movies, with the commentaries that Austin and I have been doing on those. But time travel is always a conceit in the first place. It doesn't mean that it doesn't need consistent rules that you understand. You might be able to break it down and go, ultimately, this is too paradoxical and doesn't make sense. Paradoxical. But
No, wrong franchise. Get back.
but you can't start. Yeah, I can't get my head out of that. That also has time travel, mind blowing problems.
He can't get his head in that to bring us back to this franchise.
Very good.
I saw a
Dajon,
picture.
are you talking about them traveling in time to retrieve the Infinity Stones? That and more. And we'll talk about that stuff when we get there. Oh, Ren says Cassie did get recast again. I don't understand that.
There's more Cassies than there are Spider-Mans pretty soon.
Yeah, seriously. At some point, there's going to be more actresses that have played her than Black Canaries on TV. I love Rocket in this movie a lot, and like I like he's had some real believable character evolution through the few movies he's been in. He's come a long way from where he was in Guardians 2. He still has the same snarky attitude, but he's a lot more responsible and a real hero now. And I want him, DJ, to be on the Avengers next time. If next time we make an actual honest to God Avengers movie, I want there to be some reason for him to come back to Earth and be on the Avengers, because I think he totally earns it with this movie. He seems like an Avenger to me, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, he's definitely the coolest or the most interesting at this point. I don't want to see Guardians 3 at all if it has Thor in it. I don't want to see him have to convince Gamora again to fall in love with him. Like, I'm not excited about that, where that's going at all.
I agree with that. I'm not looking forward to that either. I think the Thor stuff could potentially be fine as long as it's not too ad-libbed, but it borders too much on Ragnarok stuff in this movie, and I didn't mind the humor in the Milano in the last movie. I don't love this, but it didn't bother me in the theater. The whole thing, and of course we talked about this when we did that commentary. I'm sure we talked about this.
Definitely.
But the whole thing with, Thor and Star-Lord kind of arguing about who's gonna be boss, or him just being condescending about it. We bring that back at the end of this and spend too much time on it.
So much time. It goes on and on.
Humor thing, and I'm supposed to be laughing at it, and it's not that funny. But I think the reason it bugs me here is because it's after all the Fat Thor stuff, and none of that. I don't like any of that.
No, that's just as bad as the Ragnarok stuff. This is really cool. This is a cool way to bring her and Hawkeye back together, that she's been searching for him this whole time, because, again, for people who aren't paying attention, that relationship hasn't really been touched on since the first Avengers. But obviously they go way back, so this is a nice way to tie that in, because that's going to be very important later on.
And it's one of those things that's frustrating, right? Just like the thing that people keep complaining about with WandaVision, where that's a wonderful relationship in that show, but we didn't get to spend enough time with them before that, so you kind of wish that you already loved them as a couple, more before you get into that movie. I have the exact same thing. This isn't a romantic thing. And by the way, it's nice to see, like, platonic relationships that, men and women don't have to always be, in a romantic relationship. But those two watch to me like they've had this big past together, and like they were agents for a long time, and everything they talked about in Avengers, like it feels like they've known each other forever. But I just wish they got to be on screen together more in the movies in the interim.
Yeah, and I'm so happy we went the Natasha Clint way for the Boromir stuff instead of Natasha Hulk.
I agree. Although if we had done that at this point, I would have wanted Hulk to die, and I feel bad that I'm saying that, but I would have. He would have been the one of the two that I would have rather see gone.
Oh yeah, I love Hulk. I hate this Hulk. Why is he dabbing? Why is he dabbing in an ice cream shop?
I don't know what that means, but I don't like him either.
This is dabbing. It was like big in like 2016.
Okay.
It's like a stupid.
Like, I heard of that. I didn't know what it was. I don't really care, but he is irritating, or at least it's just not interesting. He's like, I figured out how to be both characters at the same time. I'm like, okay, that's
why are
cool.
we so bad at
we keep pretending like it's a trilogy
consistent.
and it's not a trilogy? I'm sorry, what?
Why are we so bad at keeping characterization consistent? Like, he's a scientist who's had his whole life ripped out from under him, and he's like on the run, and then now he's just acting like a complete goofball. Like, I know he's been hanging out with I know he has friends now, but I don't think that would completely change his personality.
They have forgotten all about all of that. You're absolutely right. So again, levity is just really hit or miss. All of the stuff we do with Ant-Man works for me because it's all in his character is character driven. It's a little bit more like the Guardian stuff, where that is a drama that is like pushed along by the comedy. It's not just a straight up farce, and there's places in this movie where it's bordering on just farcical sequences. But when you have Scott Lang doing things like saying, no, of course it's not a time machine. Okay, I guess it's a time machine. Like, that's not laugh out loud funny or anything, but it seems like what he would say.
Yeah. I'm going to get some super chats out of the way if you don't mind.
Sure.
Super Billy, great film despite all that, in reference to the time travel stuff earlier, a near perfect end. So that was $1.99. Thanks, Super Billy, for that. T-Edge1, $5. This is the scene people point to explain why people know about Vision and Thanos in WandaVision.
What scene?
I don't know. I don't know what scene he was talking about when he put that in.
So there's something. Oh, yeah. No, I know what he's talking about, and I don't totally understand that. I don't know what that has to do with anything. So the scene with Steve Rogers talking to the guys in the circle, I've been hearing that a lot lately too. That somehow that scene is supposed to explain how everybody knows about everything that happened in Infinity War.
Yeah.
He's not even giving any details about any of that in that circle. So I don't understand that. Like, is it just the fact that people are talking to Steve Rogers? Like, yes, all of the Avengers that are still around could have, like, gone on CNN and stuff and talked about any of that stuff, and maybe they did do that. It's just weird to me that people like Darcy know details like time got shifted backwards with Vision, without my knowing where that came from.
Yeah, that's very, that they. I mean, they must have, unless they did a very detailed like press release.
Like we know there are documentaries and things, so I guess it's okay. But that's all stuff that's like very much in the background. You blink, you miss it. Like I don't know if people would necessarily know some of those details.
They could have called this Avengers Time Heist.
It's definitely, and you know, Endgame is a generic title, but I think I like it better than Time Heist.
Time Heist.
But I think I like Time Heist better than Quantum Mania.
That is true. That is true.
Which will be in Phase 3 of Marvel Mania. Stay tuned.
There it is.
Tom, $2 super chat. Steve mentioned Thanos in that scene. Well, sure, I mean, everybody knows about Thanos, but again, he wasn't talking about any major details, was he? I looked for it on this last viewing, and I didn't...
I don't know. Less people are inferring just the fact that he's talking, that he probably mentioned other stuff.
Ren Davis, maybe. See, that's what I said, Ren. Maybe Thor told her they should have name-dropped that. Absolutely. That's the thing is she talking... What I wanted to know in that scene in WandaVision is, does Darcy know that because it's common knowledge, or does she know it because she has an in?
Mm-hmm.
I just want to know if that's common knowledge or not. It's not that it can't work. It's just a little flimsy. I don't know.
$4.99 from Dejon Patterson Powers. Captain Logan, since you're a Batman,
I am a Batman.
Names your daughters after Martha Wayne and Helena Wayne. I think he means since you're a Batman fan, name your daughters after Martha Wayne and Helena Wayne.
Yeah, we're watching Endgame right now. But since that was super chat, I'll just say real quick, people keep throwing other names at us, and we like the Batman names we picked, guys. Like, we don't like... people keep trying to get us to go with Barbara instead of the names. We don't like that name. Like, and I hate that because I love that character, but I just don't like that name for one of my kids. So it's not going to happen. And Martha's the last name I would ever give a daughter after DPS. Like, every time she opens her mouth, or I would open my mouth about her, somebody would go, "Why'd you say that name?" Like, no, obviously not.
Because
anyway,
it's my daughter.
Back to this movie though.
We can't get away from it.
I think it's really impressive that runtime wise, it has been so little time since that Cap Tony argument, and it really does feel like it's been 5 years when they come to his place in the middle of nowhere, and he says, you know, you guys can stay for dinner if you don't talk shop, and we're not going to try the time travel thing, and you know, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but that's not going to happen, and you know, the way that they're already kind of putting like the water under the bridge and stuff, like it's great. It really does feel like that much time has passed.
Yeah, the actors are just doing a great job playing different characters,
and the writing's good. Like Tony having a totally different life now. His attitude is different. Maybe my favorite thing about this movie, as far as the way it handles time travel goes, DJ, is that, and I'll talk about this here because you hate this scene. I think and this is a place where the Ant-Man comedy, by the way, doesn't work, because the whole like, oh, he wants to take a picture with them because they don't know who Ant-Man is. Like, I like that he's still a B-list hero. I appreciate that.
They just drag it out so long, and Hulk keeps saying, "No, you want to. I'm like, stop."
you guys are making a 3-hour epic. Why do I have to watch this much of this scene? Do you feel like there are places where you're kind of watching deleted scenes?
I feel like I'm watching outtakes. That they should have been like, this is terrible, this didn't work, let's take it out.
What I was going to say is, I think my favorite thing, we did talk about it, I think my favorite thing about the way the time travel is handled is that we deal with something that we so rarely actually deal with characters who are in good shape in their lives, or anything good has happened to them, even if there's like a dystopian nightmare or something, where very often you'll have characters, when something really terrible has happened, you have the ability to go back in time and change it, where they don't seem to care that much about how they're going to wipe their own lives away, and children who were born aren't born, and other people that they don't know are going to have that. Like, you're playing God and you're not talking about it. Like, it's not fair. Like, okay, maybe a lot of people died, maybe the world's not the way you want it to be, maybe it's awful, maybe it's not the way it should be, but who are you to say, hey, Joe Schmo over there, you got a wife and a wonderful family over this 20 years or whatever since this terrible thing happened, and we're going to take that away from you for the sake of the greater good. Like, who are you to say that? And even if you can make an argument to me, you have to make the argument. You can't just go, well, you can't just throw your hands in the air and go, well, of course we would change the future. Like it's your present now. It's like, no, of course we'd go back and wipe all of this away. And this movie doesn't do that. This movie has Tony say, look, whatever happens, I'm not going to lose my daughter. Like, there's like I have the life that I really want and cannot give up now. So we got to find a way to do that, and that's where he's got like righteous selfishness. That's where like I'm really with him on him kind of putting himself in at least there's a family involved, but like kind of putting himself first, and he's not, and that's why he's not entirely, and that's why this dilemma is so wonderful, where he's like, I can't lose my family that I've finally put together, and I finally found myself in who I want to be. But also, I figured out the time travel thing. It would be wrong and irresponsible for me not to look at it. All of that is wonderful. And there's too many time travel movies that don't deal with that stuff.
Yeah, I'm really with him throughout the whole scene. He's super likable.
Yeah, it's really good. Also, that whole Mobius Strip scene is the you've found a new element scene done 5 times better.
People trying to pull us away from the chat. Dejan with another $4.99 super chat. How do you feel about the X-Men always using time travelers from bad futures?
Yeah, so with things like Days of Future Past, not just the movie, but like in comics and stuff, when we do Forge and characters like that, a Cable, usually the idea is the world is so far gone that most people would agree, because you're basically trying to reverse genocide. It's like there's like maybe 500 mutants and or humans left total, that kind of a situation. This is very different from that.
Yeah, it's really cool that he asked that before you just said what you said, because it goes perfectly with what you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sorry if that was too much of a tirade, DJ.
No, that was perfect. John Kelling, $20 super chat. Thanks so much, John. The time travel works the way it does because of the quantum realm. The Ancient One says it best by explaining it as alternate timelines, essentially forming alternate universes. Loki will hopefully help make the rules more clear.
So I was going to wait till we got there to talk about this, but I can go ahead and deal with a little bit of it now. And they're talking about time travel, so it's relevant to this scene.
Relevance.
I'm with you. I hope that we delve into it further and that retroactively I buy it more. Not that it's retroactive in the sense that we're changing everything in this movie later on, like retconning, but just that, maybe I'm not looking at it right and there's some, further clarification that can happen. The reason I don't agree with you at this moment of time is that what the Ancient One is talking about is a specific event that makes the timelines branch off, not the fact that we're going back in time. So she says when you take a stone out of a timeline, it branches off the timeline and creates a new continuity. She does not say just going back in time and changing anything does that. She's really specific about it. I might be wrong, but the way she talks, and I've looked at this really hard several times, and I cannot see any way around it. Hope maybe somebody can change my mind on this, but like,
interesting. I always got the effect. I always got any change they did is what branched off, because that's how they're going to get Loki off into his own branch, because he's in a different branch right now because they changed that.
But he gets, what's sticky about the Loki thing is that he takes the cosmic cube and he disappears, and he could be anywhere. And I always like I didn't assume that he was in the same universe that it branched off. I thought he could have gone to some other alternate universe using the cosmic cube or something. Like, I don't know what's going on there necessarily. If we say retroactively that he's still in that continuity and that's the branch off thing, okay, but I would have been a lot clearer then in that scene with the Ancient One. And that means that she understands the time travel in a totally different way than Hulk and everybody else does then. That means that the exposition we get about it early on is either oversimplified or wrong. Because the way they put it is, you can't go back and change anything. And what it actually is, apparently, according to you guys, is a branched off timeline. So, like, technically you didn't change anything in that the timeline keeps going, but you did branch off into another timeline. The way they talk about it is a fixed timeline, as in, if you go back, you can do anything you want to. You can kill people, you can blow stuff up, nothing changes. You come back to the future, it's exactly the same way. They're not talking about branched off timelines. The problem with that whole thing is Captain America goes back in time, stays all the way through, and is able to still stay in the same timeline. He has not branched off anything just by being there. He's not in a new timeline. He's in ours. I don't see how that works. So I don't see how that makes any sense. And they're having their cake and eating it too, because he also gets the shield somehow. Which means in the past, he can change things. In the same timeline he is in, gets to the present, hasn't technically changed anything, even though he did. I don't understand. None of this makes any sense to me.
Yeah, we can talk about that when we get to it.
Pat B says the Ancient One is just using the stone as an example. Okay, I don't know that for sure in that scene. Because we haven't talked at all about branching timelines like before that. It feels like we're talking about a different kind of thing than we were earlier in the movie. It's really confusing to me. It's that problem of, are characters just making assumptions, or is the movie giving me exposition? And when I feel like the movie is telling me you can't change the past, and then it changes it, then I'm confused. Because I'm not sure if it's a contradiction, or if the characters early on were wrong. Like, just...
Yeah, I wish I could remember, but I had a very strong read that it was that they also knew they were making different timelines, but I can't remember what line told me that. I wish I was paying attention, because we just talked over that scene.
Yeah. They don't talk about that. They're just saying that you can't change time when you go back in time because it would create a paradox. What they're talking about would also create a different kind of paradox, I think. But when you've got Hulk saying, if you go back, is it Hulk that says it? Your past can't then be your future, like that whole thing, like that's all they talk about in that scene. Pat B says the Captain America stuff at the end breaks the rules they establish 100%. It has to.
Yeah, well,
and I don't want to spend this entire movie talking about
accepting,
this.
You just have to make a huge leap to understand it because of the way I'm trying to hold off till we get to that scene, but what's supposed to be there is that he, according to the Russos, is that he did branch off another timeline and lived that whole life in that timeline, and then he got back to our timeline somehow.
Okay, one line of dialogue.
I know.
Like, give me a little bit of exposition. That's all they needed. I got some Pym particles.
Well, the problem is they disagree. The writers and the directors disagree. The writers didn't want it to be that way. The writers wanted him to actually have to live out. There's a deleted scene with the Ancient One that explains... There's an alternate version of that scene with the Ancient One and Hulk that explains that when you put the stones back, you close the loops. If you put them back at the right time, you cut those branches. That's why Cap says cut all the branches at the end. And so they in the script, Cap was living out the rest of his days in our timeline.
That looks really good.
But that creates a bunch of problems because he just has to hide his whole life, and he can never help anybody, can never help Bucky. He has to hide.
But it also doesn't make sense that he has the shield.
I know, but then the Russos didn't want that. They wanted him to actually live in a different timeline, so he didn't have to.
Well, what the Russos are talking about makes a lot more sense, but you have to have some line about it, because.
Yeah,
and I don't know that
that's
Sam
how he has
would
the shield. Is he's getting back to our timeline.
I don't know why, but I've always loved this little moment where Hulk gives
the
him tacos.
music with him walking.
I don't know why. I like it. He gives him tacos. It's cute. It's endearing. He gives him tacos, and then there's this nice song, and I don't know. I like that bit. And then we have
Hulk
to go into
in the truck
one of the worst
like
scenes of the movie, which is really unfortunate. But
oh yeah, it's a horrible segue. I mean, it's not a horrible segue, but the scene is horrible.
I like where they put New Asgard.
I've never seen something like this, by the way, where like they shot these movies at the same time. How did they overlook something this huge? Like they were all on one ship, and then the Thanos blew up the whole ship, and like immediately we have to like come up with ways that makes sense. We're like, oh yeah, there was extra escape ships that they all escaped on.
Yeah,
that
I forgot about that.
Like,
you always bring that up. I always forget about that.
How was it that? It was the same movie. Like. You couldn't think of that?
Okay, but Blue Dragon 5, how am I supposed to know that? He says it's a new shield for pity's sake. Okay. Well, it would have been nice for the movie to tell me that. Why are you making that assumption and then acting like I'm an idiot for not catching it? Like he comes back from the like he lives his whole life out, and he has a shield. That's all I know.
No, it's not a new shield. It's the shield from the branch that he was on. You can't make a new shield unless... Because he said he made it for you. He was talking about his dad. Or Stark's dad. Whoever made the shield.
Yeah. So do you... Because I heard somebody say this the other day, and I agree with it 100%. Tell me what you think, DJ. The problem here is not that Thor is fat and has let himself go.
That was me who said that.
Was it you that said that? Well, I agree with you, DJ. I think this control. It's the attitude, and it's that it's played for humor, and it's that we're supposed to be laughing at this. That's the problem.
No,
and this would have never happened if it wasn't for Ragnarok and us turning Thor into like a comedic character that's all about the improv.
Yeah, I hate it. No, he could absolutely be drinking himself into oblivion because he's depressed and he's like, that's amazing. I want him to be super depressed and like that's his whole arc in this. I don't want him to be playing Fortnite with Noob Master. Ugh, it's so stupid. And it's gonna be so dated. Why would you even I don't understand. Like the Russos came from comedy. I don't know how they think this is funny.
Although when you say dating stuff, they also came from comedy that was kind of in the moment comedy. Like,
yeah, maybe so.
Maybe so. Russo's.
Maybe Rousseau. Yeah, it's just terrible. Like he could absolutely be like that's perfect for a Viking. Vikings were big warriors that like just drank and ate themselves into like look at the Warriors 3. One of them was huge and he wasn't making jokes all the time and like playing video games. It's not the concept. It's it's just the personality that they've completely lost. Like he's a 1,000-year-old warrior, and he would not. Like you can't even get 50-year-old people into video games. How are you gonna get a guy who's 1,000 years old into video games this far into his life?
I didn't think of that, and I don't like the way we changed his vernacular so much.
Yeah, he's just not.
Why'd you say that name?
We don't say that name.
Just don't name your kids Martha, folks. Don't do it.
It's ruined. Zack Snyder ruined the name.
I also think that it undercuts what tragedy and drama is there with his character. There are moments where I really feel for him. And for a second, And then I remember that we're about to just undercut it again with another joke. The worst thing about it for me is that the end of the scene is I'm not gonna go. I have like I don't believe in myself anymore. I'm punishing myself. I'm not interested at all. Oh, you have beer on the ship, and like that's his only motivation for leaving. He has like no reason to go with them. There's not like a rousing speech that convinces him. Nobody goes, okay, look, shape up, Thor. Like you really are wallowing in self-pity, and this is horribly wrong and irresponsible of you. And you realize that what you're doing now is way worse than the failure you think that you've done with Thanos. Nobody says that. We don't get any of that till later. And I guess it's because he's supposed to have a character arc where he pulls himself back up later, but you need a little bit of that to get him to even go in the first place, where it's like, okay, or at the very least, like some information that's like, look, Thor, we know that there's a chance that we can bring everybody back, but we cannot do it without you. And then begrudgingly, okay, I guess. And then he's still so begrudging throughout the movie that you have to keep like getting him to that place over and over again, and that would be tedious, but at least I'd buy it. This is awful. Oh, there's beer on the ship. What kind? Like, you have beer. That's stupid. And that's it. That's all you get. And then he's with them, which makes that the motivation.
So stupid.
Yeah, I don't like it. John Kelling, $2 super chat. Thanos blew half a ship. The ship was split in Infinity War. I guess I'd have to go back and look at it.
Well, I mean, how are we supposed to know that? It's just like an after the fact explaining thing. It looks like everyone's dead on the ground. Like, why would he leave?
This is one of those cases where it's kind of fun that suddenly it's a different movie.
Yeah. This is a cool movie that Marvel's not really done. Hopefully Shang-Chi's a little bit like this.
Yeah. We actually shot this, like, you know, it's supposed to be kind of an old school samurai film, but it's actually John Wick.
That makes sense.
Partly because of the way the action is shot, but more just because of where they put the subtitles.
Oh,
like
really? I haven't seen those.
It's the John Wick subtitles.
Like that? That's cool.
And they're in different colors, and they capitalize things and underline them. They make it comic booky, and it's appropriate for this because it is a comic book thing. So Blue Dragon 5 claims that the shield looks really different at the end, and that's why it's supposed to be a different shield, he says. I didn't notice that, so we'll look for it when we get there.
Yeah.
It's still round and made of vibranium, right? Like, does it look that different? I don't know. I guess we'll see when we get there. Rohith, yeah, this feels like a tonal whiplash. But a whiplash I didn't mind. Jumping around to different, current status quos. Just giving you the sense that people are in such different places.
Yeah. And I buy where he is. It's just we don't deal with it. I guess we'll probably deal with it in his TV show.
Yeah. Well, that's what those are for, apparently. We got to have these longer supplemental things to do all the character work the movies don't have time to do, so that they can have big 30-minute action sequences for their climaxes.
Although people act like he's so bad for doing this. This is basically what he did before S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, he was an assassin, so was she. Like,
that's actually a really
crazy.
good point you're making. Is it worse because he's stabbing them instead of shooting them like a sniper? Does that make it worse?
It's basically his job. Like, you act like he's way off the deep end, but he's.
I never thought of that. No, he's fine. What is he all upset about? He's killing the bad guys. That's what he always did. His main weapon is a bow and arrow. That kills people.
Next time I'll use mustard.
I got a bow and arrow. None of this makes any sense. That is a really good point you're making, DJ. Yeah, and I always bought it hook, line, and sinker too. I was like, oh yeah, he's really
love it in this movie.
He's really dark and rough now.
Oh, now we're referencing this movie.
Hilarious. Did you have this in the theater? Did you have a crowd that was all like losing their minds at how funny that was? Because that made it worse for me. Everybody's
No, I actually had a really good theater. Like I've said this before, but they were kind of on the same page with me. It was just kind of like, I mean, they weren't like they weren't screaming at it like I am now, but it was just kind of silence, just like, what the heck is this?
boy. When I saw this opening night, there were like audible, amused gasps in the audience when the reveal of the fat suit happens, and they're all laughing and okay. Hulk is completely out of character in the scene.
Yeah, where he's just like, let's just try it. Like
Where
just
he thinks,
flippantly just trying things.
is it this scene where, or maybe it's earlier, I forget, but like he decides Ant-Man's taking things too seriously, and he just starts like kind of laughing at him, and it's dangerous.
Yeah, this is the guy who accidentally turned himself into a monster with science because he was moving too quickly, and now he's just
That's a really good point.
goofing
Okay,
around.
here's that speech. I thought we'd already done it.
Yeah, so this is how they explain that it's not Back to the Future kind of time travel. You
Right.
can't
They
change
don't say anything about alternate timelines. The Die Hard line is not funny. Okay. So he acts like that's totally obvious. But the problem with it is the Steve Rogers thing. What if you stayed in the timeline? He's basically making the assumption that you would always come back to the present. And so the reason it can't change the past is that it's your personal present, like future and then present. And so, like, it can't change because it happened before things you did in your own present. It's sort of the Doctor Who thing, where it's like, you know, your own timeline versus the overall timelines. But everything is relative to whatever a person's current present is. So if you stayed in that timeline and didn't come back to the present, then what happens? Like, what if you went back to 2014 and you nuked the world? And like you somehow got your hands on the nuclear codes, you destroyed everything, and then you catch up to this arbitrary present. Does everything like automatically go right back to the way it was because you can't change anything? No, that's absurd. Like, what if you stayed there? So the only explanation is branched off timelines, but they don't talk about it. And when the Ancient One talks about it, I can't assume she's talking about anything but the stones because of the way she sets it up. And we'll get there. And by the way, this scene is a big issue that I have with the time travel thing too, and I'll talk about it in a second. But when she says if you put the stones back, it wipes away that branch timeline and it goes back to the original timeline. Does that work with anything you take out or just the stones? Because the way she sets it up is the stones create time. That's why that happens. That's what she says. So that's why I have to assume that she's only talking about the stones. Okay, so here's the problem. We just said you can't change the past. We just did. Because he's left already, and she has a reaction, and then leaves. You can't hold on that if you can't change the past. Unless that's a branch timeline, but I don't know that for sure.
Well, you're just saying because she just heard him?
Because he's gone now, and she's still reacting.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That is a way you have changed the past. Doesn't matter how subtle it is. He showed up in the past, she heard him, she reacted to it, he's gone already, but the scene lingers in the past where he's gone. Doesn't make sense with what we were just told 30 seconds ago. Right?
Yeah. And I don't think he just started a new timeline just by saying her name.
No, but if that's, well, it must have. His very being there at all would be the thing that would branch the timeline off. If we're to believe branch timelines happen without the Infinity Stones. But the way she talks about it, it seems like it's only the stones that make the branch timelines happen.
Yeah, because there's something
I don't know
about,
why
like,
anybody is
stones are
assuming
one
that
of
it's
them.
anything other than that with the way she talks about it. Pat B, it's essentially multiverse traveling. I think it's pretty simple. It should be, but they don't talk about it that way. What you guys are talking about is not in the movie. B, he changed the past in that timeline. Assuming that was actually another timeline, but again, Cap goes back and doesn't go to another timeline. He stays in ours. So why are we assuming that Hawkeye didn't do the same thing?
Well,
Unless it's true that he left and came back, but DJ, it's not in the movie.
I know, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing that breaks it. I think it makes sense until that point. This is horrible.
Yep.
Like, everyone in the scene looks mad at him. Like, why are you doing this? Why are we letting him do this?
Buster Sim says they were basically talking about changing the personal past course of their life. Yeah, okay, but then if that's the case, you still have to be worried about changing major things in the normal timeline then, wouldn't you? Because they're basically saying we don't have to worry about changing anything because it wouldn't change our own personal timelines.
Yeah, they can't change anything. They change will just start a new one. It won't affect the current one.
Sheeman Express says I'm just overthinking. I disagree. I'm sorry. I don't think I am. It does not make sense with what we're given. And like I've written about time travel stuff a lot, and there's a lot of time travel things that don't make sense, and there's a lot that make a lot more sense than this does. And I don't think I'm overthinking. I think they're not thinking about it enough. Like I think they're having their cake and eating it too, and it changes in a sequence depending on what they want it to be.
DGMC gives us $2 super chat. Avengers: Back to the Future is a bunch of BS. Thanks for the super chat.
Yeah, like I said, that's kind of fun, but.
Dejan Patterson Powers, $4.99. Captain Logan would say almost all superheroes are vigilantes or a little unethical. Would you say?
Sorry, what now?
Would you say that almost all superheroes are vigilantes or a little unethical?
I think it's hard not to do that job, but I think you're talking about really relative ethics, right? Like, you know, we could argue about whether or not everything, even like cops are allowed to do is ethical or not. I suppose, like, at some point it becomes, when we're talking about vigilantes versus law enforcement, it becomes more about breaking laws than it does about doing the right or wrong thing, I think. I mean, I think even Superman sometimes has to compromise. It's difficult for that character to go his entire career without ever picking somebody up, going all the way up to the like 100 feet in the air and pretending like he's going to drop a guy. Little unethical, but sometimes it's warranted, maybe. Maybe.
It's incredible how good these suits look when they weren't even designed when they shot this.
Daniel Davis, see, I agree with this. He says, I get the impression that they're just writing it as they go along and using the time travel stuff as an excuse. I can't believe it let you use the S word and it didn't... and I didn't have to approve it. It's really surprising. Blue Dragon 5 War Machine is not a vigilante. Well, you could argue about whether or not he's a superhero at this point, too, because he's working primarily for the government. He's like an Avenger and a government agent at the same time. He definitely... becomes a vigilante by Infinity War because he goes against what he's told.
TH1, $2 super chat.
Yeah.
Talking about when I said Fortnite was going to be dated. He said it's dated already. That's an old map. That's the old map. Yeah, exactly. My point. Why would they? It's already.
It's a good point. I do think it's. So we can argue about whether or not this is too much of a go back and play your greatest hits kind of movie. I know DJ feels that way. I'm somewhere in the middle. I like some of it, and some of it bugs me.
I don't mind it. I think.
Oh, you don't? Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to put words in your mouth. I thought we talked about this, and it was a thing that, like, Eric drove you crazy.
No, it didn't drive me crazy in theater at all. I think we do enough. We're mostly playing with stuff in the interim. Like, this is just, we show this scene, but that's just to kind of set the stage, and then after that, well, and we do the Star-Lord dance.
Yeah, but that's great.
Which is funny.
It's really fun seeing that stuff without the credits, because it seems like a thing that you would just do for an opening credit sequence, but it's in the continuity, so when they go back, he's doing that, and like, that guy's an idiot. I love that moment.
Yeah. No, I think we do. I mean, it's cool to see all these scenes from like different angles and stuff.
But I think we're in some places really clever about our own continuity and playing in it, where I don't know. It's in a fun way. It's like fans sitting around going, "Wait a minute! There were 3 of those 6 stones in New York. So if Thanos had been like looking in the right place right then, he could have gotten half of them at the same time. So why don't we just go back and get those?"
Yeah, that was really cool to. That it was cool that was a little nice scene with Black Widow figuring that out.
Yeah. So here in a minute, we're gonna get her explanation. And I get what everybody's saying about the branching off timelines. I still just, sorry guys, we'll look at it again here, but I don't feel like there's enough in what she says to be sure which of us is right about it. Tom, $10 super chat. Anything you change makes a new timeline. Anything that doesn't change is a constant. The stones are the glue of reality. If they didn't return the stones, it would cause those timelines to unravel. Maybe. And it seems like a whole lot of people are all coming together and agreeing with that, but I'm not seeing enough evidence for it. Now that we're all watching it together, I was hoping this might be the viewing where I get turned around on this, because I know I'm in the minority on it. There's a lot of people think they understand how this works, and I just don't think we're given enough.
Yeah, and I wish I had paid more attention to the words, because that's how I took it when I watched it.
Yeah, that cap speech that we talked over is fantastic, and I like the bit where Rocket goes, "Why, he's really good at that."
Yeah, he calls attention to it.
One of the coolest things visually in this is that they gave Rocket his traditional comic costume, and I didn't notice it on first viewing, and then I saw it again, and I was, oh, nobody's talking about this. It's Rocket's old costume, which we ironically, or maybe not ironically, but we hilariously give him as his newer costume.
Pat B brought up something that I laughed at yesterday. The first thing I said when she knocks Banner soul out of himself, he's wearing like a flannel shirt. What? It just seems weird that.
Are you talking about Jane Foster or? No, what'd you say? I missed what you said. Who are we talking about?
When she knocks Banner's soul out of him, his soul is wearing like a flannel shirt. It just seems really weird for Banner to be wearing a flannel shirt.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, because that goes with the whole like, mental representation of self thing, which I think we talk about in Doctor Strange, maybe. But you're just saying it's odd that would be his choice.
Yeah, like it doesn't seem like him at all.
That is weird. Tyler, overall, Hulk should have taken a cue from Max from Batman Returns to explain the time travel. Don't worry about it. Yeah, I think. And a lot of people say this all the time, and I don't agree with it, where it's like, don't think at all about the time travel, but you need rules or it's too easy. Like, we don't have to make the whole thing about the rules and make it super ultra complicated. That's one of the nice things about Back to the Future is that, with a couple of exceptions, like we're told what the stakes are and how it works and what will happen if you're not careful and stuff. And then we can move on and tell a story. But it becomes like superpowers. Saying, don't think at all about time travel and just let a movie do whatever it wants to with that is like saying, let Superman have any powers you want him to have in a scene. The Superman's powers, and I know I go to this example all the time, but Superman's powers are a conceit. It's silly that the sun would give you all of those powers. I need to know what they all are. There's nothing stopping you in a scene from going, and now he can just make multiples of himself. This is the equivalent of Superman just suddenly making multiples of himself. And it's worse because we're told what the rules are, and then they decide that that's not what they are at all. So when you get to the end and Cap's able to stay the whole time without the explanation that DJ gave us, and I wish that's what it was, because that would make sense, then I'm crying foul on it. Blue Dragon 5, Cap, you may be right. I think it's laid out good as we're going to get it here with the magic chart, essentially. Ultimately, I say let's just enjoy the time cake and not overthink it. Yeah, okay. I mean, it bugs me and I can't help but think about it. Like,
yeah, no, that's what I like. I like that. That's one of the things I like so much about this is that we lay out the rules so early and we're like, okay, this isn't the kind of time travel that you can change. Yeah, so we don't have to worry about that. We don't have that can just be gone because
that's
how we always do it. And I like that we are going in a different direction with it.
I'm sorry, but I've never liked the argument of I'm not allowed to talk about time travel because it's impossible and it's just a conceit in the first place. So no thinking about that, Cap. Like that's not fair. I'm about clear internal logic with any aspect of a story, and I don't think this has that.
So here's the beginning of all the cool pairings. This is an awesome pairing because they're both. Well,
Augmented?
obviously she has a lot more than him, but he also has
Yeah.
robot legs.
But he has more if you consider the War Machine armor. Like he's not able to do a lot of what he does without his extra technology, and she also has that. So I mean, he's a cyborg like her in a couple of ways, kind of.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that.
See, and this is a jump back that's not a rehash. This is an all new scene. We get to see what they were like a little bit more with real Thanos.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't tell us anything we didn't know already. We do get to see them together, as sisters during this period. So I mean, that's cool, but
Yeah, and then we just get to see them interacting with the Thanos we have now in the past because that Thanos wasn't even really there in
it's more
Guardians.
yeah, it's more just there to set up the really easy contrivance of Nebula's one singular brain is on a network that the other Nebula taps into when she comes back in time, even though there's no other things on the network. And that's why she is able to get the transmission. Okay. The rat thing was convenience. This is straight up contrivance.
There we go. We'll use this movie to do it. Write a comparison contrast essay on the difference between those two terms.
Sasquatch, what part of the Cap situation confuses what they say earlier? The idea that you can't go back in time and change anything. Because if somebody stayed in the timeline and is able to interact with people in the present in a way that would affect the future, then it doesn't make any sense, and it's just about arbitrary, an arbitrary present. Like, the reason that doesn't work is because if Cap has been... If we're told you can't change anything in the past, and he's there all that time, and then he shows up in the present, and he gives Sam a shield, then that changes the future. But you've said that he can't change anything. And also, he got that shield from someplace. And also, if it's supposed to be branching timelines, like everybody is saying, why didn't he go to another timeline when he went back in time, like everybody else supposedly did, according to like 90% of people that are talking to me about this?
Yeah, and the Russos, like I said, would say he did. They just didn't show it. That's the problem with like the whole Marvel universe shooting things forward all the time, like setting up things instead of finishing things. Like they're like, whenever you ask him, well, how did he get back to our timeline? They're like, well, isn't that an interesting story? Maybe you'll see it someday, but like that doesn't do anything for this movie.
No, and like I said when we were talking about the Snyder Cut, if it's not in the movie, it doesn't count. So Sasquatch is saying, well, the directors have come out and said that. Okay, that's cool. They should have put it in the movie. Because for the piece that we have, I don't know that happened. And I don't care that retroactively they said that. It's not in the movie, so it doesn't count. Now that I know that's what it's supposed to be, at least I know that they think there's an explanation. But again, the thing the Ancient One needs to say is, when you came back in time, it branched the timelines. That's not how she talks about it. So yeah, like I said earlier, I'm
Fantastic Four
somewhere.
did that scene.
I'm sorry, what?
Fantastic Four already did this scene, guys. Tim's story beat you to it.
What do you mean?
Where Thing can't get on the elevator, they make him take the stairs. Which is a
Oh
really
yeah,
weird. Which is the way we ruined the scene was just Hulk comes out of the stairs like a baby.
yeah. So I'm somewhere in the middle on how self-indulgent it is for the Russos to go back and do kind of the greatest hits thing and celebrate the Marvel Universe, the MCU, in this movie. Where it most breaks down is in places where it gets kind of sappy and prequely, like Captain Marvel to me, and we'll talk about that with the 70s because there's some of that there, I think. And then places like this where it just is nonsensical. Why does Steve already know these people? Like, we get what seems like a new status quo in Winter Soldier where he's a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. At the beginning of Avengers, he's just killing time waiting for a mission. He's not been working with these people. It doesn't make any sense that he'd know Rumlow or anybody, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how closely he's working with Shield in that year after he comes back.
Like, the Hail Hydra thing is clever. It's kind of funny because it calls back to the really crappy event that happened right before that in the comics with Secret Empire, where Captain America was changed by time travel shenanigans to have always been a Hydra agent. So it's kind of fun to see him do that. But it was really just to recreate the elevator scene. I think you could have contrived some other scene where he has to say Hail Hydra to somebody. Where he knows them, but they don't think he knows them yet. But I don't know, it's kind of weird that he knows everybody in that elevator already. Blue Dragon 5, Steve was working with Fury. Yeah, but I don't think he was a full-on S.H.I.E.L.D. agent yet. Dejan, I think it's a sense of respect for Captain America. Yeah, it's just he comes in and calls him by name. And it's also maybe a little bit easy that nearly everybody that was in that elevator in the scene in Winter Soldier is in it there. This, by the way, was not a thing I noticed in the theater. Somebody pointed out to me, and I agree with it now after somebody mentioned that. I didn't initially have this problem. And then Pierce is also here at the same time, just so that we can get all this Winter Soldier callback stuff back in here. It's a little easy. Everybody's there, maybe.
Well, I mean, I think they would have came if we had them when we shot Avengers. I think they would have came for the big 2012 invasion. Yeah, they were there. They were just heads in the thing.
It's also retroactive when he's like, this has been in S.H.I.E.L.D. property for 70 years. And I'm like, in the movie that you guys are adding to, I did not get the sense that anybody knew about the Tesseract.
Well, no, because Iron Man's dad and Agent Carter had it when they started S.H.I.E.L.D. That's where...
Is that supposed to be the whole idea that they had it going all the way back that far?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've known that.
It's been too long. I have to go back and rewatch some of this stuff again. There was something about that never added up to me, but it's been too long. It's hard to keep everything in my brain, guys.
It's really weird. It's really weird seeing new Chris Hemsworth playing old Thor, but still being goofy. It's bizarre. Because that's not what the character he was playing in.
But I still don't buy that Fury knew about aliens at this period.
It would be so annoying for people who worked on this fight scene that they added the mask, because they went through all this trouble to shoot this without that mask is digitally added because people couldn't keep track of which one was which. So they went through the trouble of shooting it all with his face exposed on both sides, and then later after test screenings they had to add the mask anyway. So all that hard work was useless.
Yeah, Pat B, I knew Stark pulled the Tesseract out of the ocean. I guess for some reason there was a disconnect where it didn't occur to me that would have gone to S.H.I.E.L.D., but obviously it would. There was something about Avengers back in the day that made me think that they had just gotten their hands on it. But now in the moment, I'm remembering the real issue I had, of course, was that everything changes after Avengers because, oh, there's aliens, and we didn't know that. And then retroactively, well, Fury's known about aliens for 25 years. That is a technically impressive scene.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, it's nicely set up, and doesn't go on too long, because I think it's a thing that a lot of people would want to see, like a hero fight himself in the past. But it could have been really drawn out and irritating. Okay, so let's see what exactly she says here. The stones create time. That's a problem for another reason. I'll talk about that in a minute. You take one out, and the flow splits. It's the taking of it out that makes the timeline split. That's what she says. And then he says, well, if we put it back, then it'll come back. So... And she says that in the same sentence as, it's the stones that creates the flow of time. Why would I make any assumption that anything other than taking a stone out would split realities? Based on what she says. So I feel like everybody's assuming branching timelines apart from this when there's nothing in the movie whatsoever that talks about that. Pat B, she says, our, though, speaking of our timeline, not the timeline. Right. So you're saying they're already in a different timeline? I don't know why we're making that assumption. I also don't totally get how her cosmic awareness works. Like, DJ, how much of the future is she aware of? Because, like, it doesn't seem like she knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, she can't... Oh, yeah, this, like, him coming back? Well, she doesn't know about Thanos. Like,
yeah,
I think in
but
Doctor
she knows
Strange,
when the Sorcerer Supreme happens.
Yeah, I think in Doctor Strange it says she can't see past her own lifetime. It's really cool that she came back for this.
Yeah, Professor Zoom, that's the other big thing I was going to ask is if the Infinity Stones create the flow of time, and you take one out, it branches off timelines. How is everything okay if you destroy the stones? Is it just because they exist in other timelines? Like, I would think destroying them would be a bigger problem than removing them. DGMC, she can't see past her own death. Yeah, there's that, but I'm just wondering, like, what all she actually knows, because she does seem surprised by Hulk showing up there. I don't know. Maybe we can make up some stuff to make it make sense. I just don't think it's real well thought out, is my point.
I think they probably did have it well thought out. They just didn't communicate it as well.
yeah, now people are talking about the stones existing as atoms, and so then the universe is fine. But then why would removing them make a difference? I don't know. I don't know. I guess because they're just not there in that timeline. I don't know.
Dejan Patterson Powers, 499. Captain Logan, could Professor Hulk work for you as a balanced form of Banner and Hulk to have the strength and intelligence?
I mean, I don't mind doing it. It's just sort of like the Thor thing. It's just played too much for comedy, and we didn't do enough getting there in the last two movies, is my problem with it.
Yeah, and he seems like a different character completely. Like, this could be such a great scene if he wasn't saying, yeah, totally from the future.
Yeah, it's weird because we play his side for a joke, but she's not even picking up on the fact that he's a totally different person. And, like, I think in some way she'd be like, what happened to you? Why are you talking like that?
Well, she does pick up. It's hilarious because she does pick up on the fact that he's a totally different person. That's how she immediately knows he's from the future and is not the right one.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true.
She's like, why are you acting like a bumbling idiot?
If you're gonna use 3 seconds of Natalie Portman from a deleted scene from another movie, just don't use her. Just don't put her in the movie. Especially because then she gets a credit and it's weird.
She's walking, and then Rocket's like the slasher behind her.
Sean Callan, Thanos calling Avengers unruly wretches is a nice callback to the Avengers 1 post-credit scene.
Oh, wow.
Is it? Did he say something like that in that?
I thought he didn't say anything in that. I thought he just like turned his head.
Is it because of what's his face is saying right before that? The whole
what Loki said, maybe?
thing? Is it part of that speech? Maybe it's part of that speech. I'm not remembering it. Krishna Ogden, Cap, is this your least favorite of the 4 Avengers movies? I don't know how to rank them at the moment, to be honest with you. I think it and Age of Ultron are kind of maybe in some ways equally flawed. So I'm not sure, because I love Ultron, but there's just too much in it that I didn't appreciate until I kind of slowed it down in writing about it. And some of this movie seems a little bit, flimsier on rewatch, and it's got a lot of like not real funny comedy moments that I think kind of drag it down, and I think that real estate could have been used for something more interesting. So that's my main thing with this one. My confusion with the time travel stuff doesn't break the whole movie, really. I just don't get it. I'm just confused by it. And I wasn't going to spend this much time talking about it, but then people wanted to argue, so I thought I would reciprocate.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that's like in my head, I guess. That's like I just took it for granted because of how much it's been talked about and explained that I didn't even look for it in the movie because I was just like I already knew how it worked in their heads.
I've never looked at any of that. I'm just looking at the movie, man. I didn't know they said that much about it. Well, DJ,
Yeah.
Sorry for wasting your time, buddy. I didn't know about any of that.
No, it's not something I've looked into either. I just heard people talk about it. Dejan Patterson Powers gave us a $4.99 a while ago. I mean, Steve is cool with Wakanda, so he could just ask T'Challa to make a American-style vibranium shield for Sam.
Well, maybe that's what he did. I don't know.
Guess we'll find out in a couple years.
But
Or
if
maybe
he did it in the
this
same
year.
timeline, that would be changing the timeline. So if he went somewhere else, then that's cool. But what's it, Sim? You guys are acting like 5 years didn't happen in between. Yeah, Ragnarok started the change in Thor, but it's been 5 years. People change. What do you say to that, DJ?
I mean, I don't think, I don't know. I don't buy that he changes that much. Like, he's a 1,000-year-old, like, super being that has been a warrior his entire life and led people as a king, and he's gonna devolve into a teenager baby. Like, he's not even a teenager. Like, how do you turn into a guy who just sits around and plays video games and yells at Noob Master? That's gross.
Maybe I'm just not remembering the timeline of this well enough, but this is a thing I've always been a little bit confused about. Why is the Kree ship? Is it the Kree? Why is the ship not here already with the Who guy and all of that? Like, you'd think when they break in here, they'd have to deal with the guys that show up there, because this is like right around the same time that happened. Like, we just had the credit sequence, and like he does all that dancing around and stuff, and then he comes in here, and then he has to contend with those guys, but they don't show up here. So, like, do they beat them by that much time?
I don't know. Sasquatch says I'm literally crapping on people with depression. No, the movie is. I wanted him to be a depressed.
No.
Like,
I think it's. Wait, did it say
himself.
DJ? I think it was making fun of the. I think he was making fun of the movie, wasn't it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you're making fun of the movie, I agree with you. Like, they shouldn't be making it a big.
Oh, maybe
show.
he wasn't. Maybe he was talking about us. I'm not sure. Yeah.
No, I wanted it to be taken seriously, and they're just making light of it and goofing on it.
Yeah,
the whole time.
exactly.
It's really lucky that they didn't watch the part where Nebula told everyone that Thanos murdered Gamora, because that would have been unfortunate. They only watched, I don't know how much they watched.
I think just this part.
They just skipped to the end. They skipped right to the end.
They just saw that.
Thanos isn't a movie guy. He just fast forwards to the end.
That's all that was there. Like, he just doesn't have a good home theater setup.
No, it's just a tiny little hologram.
Yeah, he's just standing there watching it. Like, his feet like, his legs gotta hurt. At some point, he's gonna want to sit down.
It's the armor. It's just so heavy.
A lot of people really don't like the way Thanos comes back at the end of this and see it as too much of a double beat, where we're fighting the same guy and that it's a less interesting version of him because he's from the past. I think some of the motivation stuff is a little rushed, but I think had the title been kept the same and this was still Infinity War Part 1 and 2, people would not have complained about that as much. I absolutely expected Thanos to still be the main threat of this movie coming into it. I didn't think,
Yeah.
and I think that's the subversion at the beginning, is we cut his head off, but then he's still the bad guy. Like, I didn't expect him to die at the beginning. I still figured somehow he's still the bad guy at the end of this. I was not remotely surprised when we go back in time and get him and bring him back.
Yeah, it's a little weird that he's so like he talks about how he's going to enjoy killing everyone at the end of this. Like, why is he that
know any
different?
of them?
No, he's talking about everyone in the world. Like, 4 years made him that much different that and 4 years ago he was just like loved killing people, and now and then in Infinity War he thinks he's like the good guy.
No, that's not my read on it. It isn't that. It's that he's impatient now. It's that, well, you've proven to me that there's always going to be people that are going to retaliate and try to put the world back right, and now it's personal because of that. He says, before I didn't take it personal. He says, now it's personal. But that's where I say that the motivation is a little rushed, DJ, because it watches like a guy who has been dealing with these same superheroes all this time, but he's not that. He doesn't know them. He's not the same guy. So like, I get his reason for doing it. The enjoyment thing is going a little bit too far, and I also think that there's. I guess we'll talk about this again when we get there, maybe. But there's every reason that there's every way Thanos could have come up with a way to still do the plan he wanted to, and maybe get away with keeping people from rising up after that. Like, all he has to do is, instead of killing like half the universe, it's half the universe plus everybody that opposed him in the first place, so that none of everybody else even knows that he did it. And then he'd be good. He doesn't think of that. He's just like, well, fine. If somebody's always going to come back at me, then I guess I'll just start everything over from scratch and create my own life forms. And you're only doing that because you left Avengers alive. All you had to do was not leave any of them alive. That was my whole point about that. I have no reason to talk about that at the end now. So it is fun to go to a time period that we've not dealt with. I'm kind of glad that we get to do that. But I think one of the unfortunately sappiest and not great written sequences in the movie is Stark and his dad. A lot of it just reads way too like retroactive and trying to force in things that the audience is going to be familiar with and kind of a plot at, and it reads too easy to me.
It's unfortunate that Stan Lee's last cameo was such a just nothing throwaway cameo. I wish they knew he was about to go. That's why they were shooting multiple cameos ahead of time. Why didn't they make that one like a meaningful one?
A bigger thing?
Than just like a...
I'm not sure what you'd do, but I'm with you. Maybe not that. And I'm sorry, I think I talked last time like his actual final cameo was in Captain Marvel. I kind of forgot about that one.
I mean, it is really cool because they also make a 70s version of his wife next to him in that scene, which is really sweet, but I don't know, it's just kind of a blink and you miss it throwaway. Unlike the Spider-Verse cameo, which we loved.
Stephen Murphy, we're talking about Thanos again, he should be trying to preserve what he caused and could have still been fighting them as he realizes they're coming after him and are planning to bring people back. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, I get that seeing the future would obviously change his motivations.
Yeah.
The line where he comes out and says, I'm going to enjoy doing this to your puny little planet. I'm like, whoa, what?
And kind of speaks to, I've never understood his sadism. So I forgot that Tony had these glasses before we get into Far From Home.
Yeah, it's a nice touch.
And I was talking to some folks in the Patreon Discord today, and somebody suggested that he had them even before this. And now I gotta go back and look, because I didn't remember that.
I do like that even he is frazzled by this, like Tony Stark, who can always hold his own with anyone. Even he's like freaked out by seeing his dad. It's good stuff.
Yeah, that's good. I've just got some issues with some of the lines, but yeah, the way he plays it is great. I think it's funny that he mispronounces Zola to Zol, and I don't know if he does it on purpose or not. I'm really not sure.
You don't know if the actor does it on purpose?
Yeah. I don't know if there was a point to that or if they just kept it in. I don't know. He's just like, Zol. I'm like, sounds like Ghostbusters almost.
Honestly, that's probably the first time that Robert Downey Jr. has heard the name Zola.
Yeah, probably is. But he might have done it on purpose. I'm really not sure. But yes, he should be frazzled by this for 100 different reasons. You know, the thing with Iron Man 2, where he saw his dad on the video, and the thing with finding out how his parents got murdered in Civil War. There's been this is certainly a big payoff to everything with the father-son stuff with Tony Stark going all the way up. There's been kind of an arc with these characters. They've never been on screen together, obviously, except for a flashback. That wasn't actually a flashback, because it was on stage with holograms.
It's so weird. I love him being like this nerdy little short scientist guy who's like pushing people out of the way. It totally tracks with him later.
Yeah, people are saying he had the glasses in Infinity War, but somebody suggested he had them even before Infinity War, and I'm not sure if that's true.
I don't know. His style changes obviously every movie
So if
because Tony.
I'm Steve Rogers, I
Just take
take
them all.
all of the Pym
Don't
particles.
take any risks. Just take them all. What I really like about this scene is that he always thought his dad was just a jerk face scumbag who didn't care about him at all, but he actually finds out that he does. He's just really bad at it. But that's so sad and really depressing and terrifying as a parent that you could try really hard and do so badly that your parent thinks you hated him. That's really scary.
And then what makes it either tragic or gives him an out, depending on how you want to look at it, is that after this, Tony won't even have to worry about how that informs him as a parent, because he's going to die and not raise his kid. So it doesn't even matter. But it's kind of cool that, like, he's been... You know, I like that his daughter is as old as she is. This wouldn't play nearly as well if, like, his wife had just given birth, and then he does the big self-sacrifice at the end. The self-sacrifice also is not a horrible double beat or triple beat or whatever, given all the other times he's almost done that, because now he's got a family, and he's got that at stake, and he's having to leave them, and, like, that makes it very different. And I think... really sold me on it, because they made you think that he might die at the end of last movie, and it was, I think, a pretty decent payoff and kind of worth it the way he goes in this. Not even specifically how it happens with the gauntlet and everything, but because he's got a family, and it isn't just him making the self-sacrifice play for himself anymore. It's not just like he's well past. Is he just straight up selfish now? Now he's giving up something even greater than himself.
Yeah, and the kid thing makes it so much like, and having a kid is one of those annoying things where you're like, you really don't understand until you have a kid, and then like me when I didn't have a kid was like, I can understand like everyone, but it really is true. Like it's really weird what having a kid what happens to you when you have a kid, especially you. You know, like I have two now. You have a lot more coming on the way, but it happens every time. It's like every time you have a kid, your heart opens even bigger. It's so weird.
It depends on who you are. I think I'm probably more dead inside, to be honest with you. I'm just kidding.
Like I was worried about not being able to love my second kid as much as my first kid because of how much I love that first kid. But it happens. It works. I don't know how it works.
No, I'm with you. It's because they're so different.
Yeah.
That, like, I almost can't compare them. It's just a totally different thing. Jason is awesome and Freddy's awesome for totally different reasons. Mikey's a crazy person, but he's also wonderful.
Yeah, Mikey's the verdict is still out on Mikey.
This scene is playing better for me than it has before. In the theater, I thought some of this was just a little bit too on the nose. It's really interesting that we brought back the actor who played Jarvis in the Agent Carter show, given that the TV stuff is not canonical, and it's the only thing at all that makes any of it kind of feel like it is. Well, not the only thing. On the TV side, there are things that connect up kind of in kind of, okay, cool ways with the movies. But now the movie side finally has taken a character from that and put it in the movies. And then you go, okay, is it canon or not? Now we've been told that it's not, so whatever, we just use that actor. But I do like that we are canonicizing at least there was a Jarvis before you had the, like, maybe you need that just so that you can even say that happened, since the other side doesn't count now. So that's good.
Yeah, I like that. That's kind of the same thing as the Quicksilver thing for me. Like, when you're writing that, you're like, okay, we have a Jarvis in the scene. It's going to be dumb if it's just a guy we don't know. Well, let's just use the Jarvis we had. Like, it'll be fun.
Yeah. What makes it bittersweet for me is the Agent Carter show, at least the first season, is the only thing they did on the TV side apart from Netflix that I really wish counted, because it all fits pretty well, and it's really good. And
yeah, the first season is great. Have it right there.
You get to see the actual beginning of S.H.I.E.L.D. And, like, would you agree with this? It feels like an early Disney Plus thing. Like, it should have been one of the Disney Plus shows, and at least that first season. And I wish retroactively they would grandfather it in, because that above everything else feels like it should count.
Is it at least on Disney Plus?
I think it is.
Okay, that should be the bare minimum. They should at least have it there.
So at least you can see it, but I don't think it technically counts. Like, we'll never build on anything from that necessarily, but whatever. Oh, thanks, Cheeman Express. If you didn't hear the news, my wife and I are having twin daughters on top of the 3 kids that we have already, it turns out. And I'm still spinning. I'm actually taking, after tonight, the rest of the week off, just to deal with some family stuff and try to regain my bearings after finding that out, because it was the last thing we expected. We knew we were having kids, of course, but we got the ultrasound and we found out it was twins. And
that's an interesting thought,
yeah,
gentleman.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, fine. Gentleman Merc, $5 super chat. Sup, guys? Is it possible that Gamora leaving Thanos at the end of the first Guardians is what changed him? Interesting.
Oh. What changed him? It changed him in what way?
Well, made him less of a sadist and more of a.
The problem with that
he's doing the right thing.
Like, I'd love to make that my headcanon, but the problem with it is not that I'm like a headcanon guy, but the problem with that, DJ, I think, is it's talked about that the balance and getting rid of half the universe to save the rest of it was always his motivation going all the way back. And it just never jived that he was as sadistic as he was. I don't know why he has to treat Nebula the way he treats her. Like, I just don't get it. And I don't think the movies do either. It feels like a thing that we did initially because Thanos is very, like sadist, worshipping the idea of death character in the comics. And later on, we decide that he's not that, and he's more sympathetic. You know, his like he has a more noble goal in mind. And it could be that, in killing people for as long as he did, he got to that place. But there are scenes where it feels like he's not supposed to be the kind of sadist that he would have to be in order to make Gamora. And you're right, that could be the reason. I don't think that's intended.
Well, and Nebula was already, I don't know.
Chewbacca's lover, that's a good try, but you might expect it to go the other way. Sure.
Yeah, you might expect
that's a good point, too.
Angry after she leaves.
Oh, that's great. Stephen Murphy. So Hawkeye and Black Widow don't know who Red Skull is? They did this in Winter Soldier 2, where Natasha doesn't know who Peggy Carter is.
She doesn't do her research, man. She skips all the
She doesn't know
briefings.
anything. Professor Zoom, maybe the twins have something to do with you watching WandaVision. I had that same thought. Yeah, it was really weird right after WandaVision, finding out that I had twins.
Yeah, you're right, because later on Hawkeye says, you tell that to the big floaty red guy who said it. Like,
yeah. Like, how do you not know that's Red Skull? That's weird.
He was like, yeah, wouldn't that be taught in schools, like World War II? He was like the second-hand man, unless they kept that a secret. I don't know.
So here's a question. What if you come here by yourself? What happens if you come here alone?
Or what if you come here with someone that you don't love?
Yeah, conveniently.
Any other pair.
Only people who ever go after this stone are people who come with another person who is the person that they most love. Does he mean just, like, relatively to whatever's on your person right now? Or, like, if you came and all that you had on you was, like, you had a wallet, you had a picture of your wife, and that was the closest thing to, like, the thing that you most loved in the world, you drop that picture in there and you get the stone, you're like, okay. Sure.
Yeah, and also, like, did all of the other stones, were they hidden on some planet at some point and also had some magical thing that you had to
That's a great question.
take for? Why is this the only one? Is this just the one that's never been found? Like, it's just still here? All the other ones have been passed around in movies and stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know. Yeah, why this one?
I mean, I know it's the soul stone, so it's like you trade a soul, blah, 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 but why is this one, like, you can't just pick it up like all the other ones?
Dagon Spear, I think some people can have noble goals and still have a survival of the fittest mindset and see Nebula as lesser in connection to her losing to Gamora. Well, sure, but again, it's the sadistic part. It's that, like, he could have a favorite among them, but the fact that he is, constantly in trying to build her up to be a better soldier, like taking pieces of her off and torturing her and all of that, he does seem to enjoy it in certain scenes. He's getting too much pleasure out of that. And I'm just not understanding where that comes from. I'm not saying I couldn't be made to buy it. I get the distinct impression that the movies don't know why that's happening either.
So this kind of ruins Infinity War because it is you have to give up. You have to make the decision, right? They're both jumping off, like trying to kill themselves. Like that won't do it. The other
I
person
wouldn't
has to
think.
sacrifice.
I had the same thought. Yeah, I wouldn't think that
And
would
she
work.
doesn't do it. She pulls away from him in the end. He doesn't make the decision. It's not like that Spider-Verse thing where we said where he actually makes the decision to let go, not Miles pulling away. They do the wrong thing here.
Yeah. They're trying to game the system. And it works.
Yeah, it works.
Well, it kind of works.
He needs to consciously let go right here. But
yeah,
but it's clear. It's just
no. You're right. She
off.
throws herself. Yeah, no, they do. They game the system and it works. And it is weird 2 movies in a row to get the same kind of scene again. Like I don't know how else you do it, but it's just odd. Where like we've got her on the ground and then we cut and then once again we got somebody like coming up getting the stone.
The first time I saw that I thought that was like a big blood puddle next to her head, but I think it was just her red hair. But it like freaked me out when I first saw it. I was like, "Whoa, Marvel!"
Like, wow, you guys have never done that before. And now all DJ would have wanted to do is go back and find all the places where that should have happened and didn't. It's weird. John Kelly, what if you love your coffee from Starbucks? Do you have to drop your coffee, or do you have to sacrifice your usual barista?
What if Hawkeye had to?
That's the best.
Barista. What if Hawkeye had to like sacrifice his bow, like his favorite bow?
Yeah, that's great.
Not Melinda.
Maybe you could assume that it's a person. Maybe if you didn't bring somebody with you, Red Skull has the power to summon them. Could be that,
that's
but
terrifying.
Doesn't happen. Oh no, that's nuts. But
he's just like, well, they're like,
I've
well,
always
sorry,
loved
I don't have
this
anyone. He's like, well, don't worry, your daughter's right here, and he just whips her out.
Ren says, I think Red Skull does simply say you have to lose something you love, not sacrifice, so it kind of fits. I got the sense that it was straight up sacrifice, at least in Infinity War, but if that word is never said, then
yeah,
we may be wrong.
I'm fine with that if that's how it is. Thanos would still have to do it either way, because she wasn't sacrificing herself. He had to make her do it.
Daniel Davis says, I love how over the top Silvestri's score is in the scene. I think it's bombastic. I'm not going to go as far as over the top. I think it's warranted. I think it's earned.
Yeah.
I don't think I like that scene as well as I do the Gamora death, but that may be because I did not think that actress could act until that scene, and then I loved her.
Caught
and
you
I've
by
changed,
surprise.
That colored my whole everything with that. They did. I was surprised that they killed her and not him. I really didn't think they'd do that.
Especially because she never got her movie. I mean, obviously now we know that it's going to be a prequel, and so that's. But at the time.
Yeah. Well, and like, I'm not saying they greenlit that movie so that they could surprise us with a death, but I'm sure they were thinking that when it happened, where it's like, nobody's going to think we'd do this. They know she's got a movie coming. But also, they're making a concerted effort to make a bigger deal out of, like, more diversity and female characters and stuff. The last thing you'd think that they would do was kill the only female Avenger they had.
Yeah.
Because space magic seems like the way Thor would describe that. It's because he's a cartoon character now.
Yep. I mean, I'm just tired of complaining about it. Like, I ranted about it the whole time I watched this with my wife. Like, I have no more steam.
Yeah, what I'm finding... Yeah, DJ, and again, like, I kind of feel bad about talking about the time travel as much as I did. Like, I'm finding it difficult with this particular commentary, to like find new ground, because I feel like we've really talked this one out pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, we've done Marvel Mania. We've talked about everything leading up to this.
But this versus like every other movie we've done so far, this has been the one that's been kind of hardest to me to not feel like I'm just repeating myself and not going anywhere interesting.
It's cool how much time they give with her death.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely got a lot of weight, and you need to do that because I know I'm not alone in saying this. That was not a character that was not my favorite Avenger, and it wasn't even my third favorite Avenger, and I think a lot of people felt that way, where like she was just kind of there. I love her in Winter Soldier, but That's the only place where she really comes alive and becomes really interesting to me. And I like her relationship fine with Banner in Age of Ultron, but I'm never like, she's never really resonating with me all that hard, except for that identity stuff that we get with her in Winter Soldier. And I always like yearn to get more of that. And just from trailers, seeing from her solo movie, it really doesn't look like they're going to go that way with it. It doesn't look like it's going to be the character that I really liked in Winter Soldier. I think she's going to be she's a little different in every movie she's in, which is kind of intentional. But I hope I'm wrong about that. I hope she's a little more like that. But a part of me wishes they'd left her alive so that she could be in Falcon and Winter Soldier. Because I'd probably love her there again. Because that show's a little bit more like Winter Soldier so far.
It could have been so good, man. Like, he gave up everything. He gave everything he had throughout Infinity War, and he failed. And it's such a good arc, and everything around it, though, is terrible.
Yeah.
It could have been so good. It could have ended this franchise on a great Thor. So sad.
I mean, not that we're ending the franchise.
Well, could have ended this saga.
This part of it.
I mean, I'm not going to see Thor 4.
This mega phase. I don't want to see that movie for sure.
I don't want to see it at all. I think we should.
You want to boycott it?
Stake in the ground. Well, it's
I've never.
boycotting. It's just two of us.
I've never in my 12-year career done that.
I think that should be the last straw. Thor 4.
What if it's good? I mean, I don't expect that, but then I didn't expect to flip my sign green for the Snyder Cut either. And, like, it was something of a lukewarm green, but it was good enough I went green. Like, anything is possible.
Lukewarm green. That phrase just sounds weird. John Kelling, $5. It'll be funny if the post-blip causes a rise in supervillains because of severe depression, ruined credit scores, and banks getting even worse.
Yeah. Again, I don't want to give away too much about that first episode of that new show, but some of that made me think of that. Yeah, that's gotta happen, right? Half the world comes back, and we didn't expect it. We don't know how to cope with it.
Yeah, and
what's really interesting is I didn't think of this. Suddenly, you have the precise population problem Thanos was talking about. Mm-hmm. Because we took away half of the universe, and then we got used to it, and then we brought him back, and we weren't really thinking about overpopulation before, and now we're really feeling it. Because what if you took the original 7 or 8 billion and you doubled it to 16? It's tantamount to the same thing. When you started with like 4 and you went to 8. Does this make Hulk feel like he's basically just a plot device in this movie?
Because he's big enough to do it without dying?
Well, and because he's not resonated with us, and he's been just kind of more comic relief and stuff, right? Like he hasn't had a great character arc, and he's got to be the one that uses the stones just because apparently the radiation is mostly gamma, which seems like just a tacked on thing that we say so that he's the one that uses it. He's kind of a plot device in this movie.
Yeah, but I mean, other people could have used it, they just would have died, so he's not like completely essential. He's just the only one that could do it without dying, and his arm just gets shriveled up.
Yes, but ironically, to DJ now, he's the most expendable one. He's the only one that won't die. DJ's the one that wishes he would.
Hey, you're the one that said that you wished he would have fallen off the cliff and to get the Soul Stone earlier.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you said if it was Nat and Hulk.
Oh yeah, sure.
He was.
I was mostly just putting words in your mouth because I figured. I feel like somewhere you said that where you're like, at this point, just kill him off because I don't like him anymore. Have you said that?
Also, if Hulk fell off the cliff, he wouldn't die. So how would they kill him then?
Well, yeah.
It has to be someone that
you make a
can die from falling off a cliff
somehow. So I have a nitpick, and that is I don't understand how Clint Barton has cell service.
Or you mean how he kept his wife's phone number on cell service this whole time, 5 years later?
How he kept his own number. Because he's been basically a fugitive? And you're telling me he's been paying for a phone bill this whole time? unless Shield pays for it. And then they just kept paying for it, hoping to find him. And so, well, like, you don't even have Shield anymore. So, like, maybe Sword or I don't even know. Like, this is a conversation I had with some guys in the Discord today where I was like, wait a minute. Does it actually make sense that he would have regular cell service? Would he have like a burner phone or something?
Yeah, even if he did, there's no way his wife's service would still be online 5 years after she died.
Okay, well, there's that too. So both of them are weird. But like, if she calls him, that means she has his number. And so he has the same phone number somehow, even though he's been on the run. That's weird.
Yeah, if he had cell service, I don't think Black Widow would have had any trouble finding him, and she's been trying to find him for 5 years.
Yeah, that's a good point. No, it's just there for that image, right?
Yeah.
So at first I thought it was maybe a little bit too convenient that Thanos shows up right as they bring everybody back from the blip, but I think it works because it's a distraction so that everybody's in one room so that Nebula can go bring Thanos here. So I think it works.
Can you explain to me how in the world Thanos got here?
But cinematographic, if it is a burner phone, how does she have the number for it? Can you just can you pick any number you want to for a burner phone? I don't think you can.
Also, I mean, what's the point of having a burner if you have it for 5 years? Isn't
Yeah,
the point
and
of a
if you
burner
keep
just
the
to
same
use
number.
it and get rid of it and get rid of it?
I do not want to keep talking about this, but I thought it was an amusing thing to mention. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I really have. I need something that you to explain to me. How
I
does
can't
Thanos
probably,
get here?
but I'll try. Say again.
How in the world does Thanos get here? Nebula shows him the Pym particles.
Yes.
And that's how they're getting back. But then
Yes.
she uses that to get back. And then he comes back differently.
So I have always had a theory about this, but it's not in the movie. And the theory is she takes... The theory is that's the reason Captain America grabs 4. That she uses one to send another to Thanos. And then he uses that to come back. And they've then used exactly 4.
So she somehow takes one that Captain America brought back?
She
and then
takes
sends it to
2.
him?
She'd send him one, and then he'd use the other one to come back.
Okay.
She would need one to send one in the first place.
Yeah.
Right?
But then, how does he bring his whole army?
Or maybe you could just send one. So that has always been fine to me, although maybe I get why people question it, and maybe that is a thing that we need explained. But I don't think he brings the whole... Because you only see him come from the future, or I'm sorry, from the past. They're still out there. I assumed he just called them. I assumed he just called present day.
But the 4 generals are there, and they died in Infinity War.
I didn't think of that.
Yeah,
Okay, well
like
then I don't know.
Squidward who got sucked out of the ship.
Loophole, yes. Never mind.
I don't know
Forget
how he brings
that.
all
And
these
I have
people.
argued this forever. People keep throwing that at me, where it's like, well, how do they? No, that makes sense. Oh my God, you're right. Well, maybe she sends.
And he also,
But then they should show it differently when he goes through the quantum tunnel. Because what I was going to say is maybe Nebula sends back technology, like Ant-Man technology, to make everything smaller. But then we only see the one ship show up, and and later on, because isn't it that you got one ship hanging in the air, and then later everything else is there? Like, they're not all there at the same time, and that's why I thought they must have come from other places in space. But if there's dead people there, it doesn't make any sense.
And also she would have had to send him a ship also with the Pym particles, because they had to bring a ship with them to get to Vormir.
Pat B, they're all on the ship is how I read it, but one vial for that gigantic ship is weird. Yeah.
No, because each of the Avengers had to have their own vial.
They had to have their own, yeah. Okay, you're right, and a lot of people have told me that doesn't make sense, and I really thought he just called... But the thing is, I tune out during the big action stuff at the end of the last movie because I don't like Thanos' army, and they're not... The designs aren't interesting, the characters aren't interesting. I didn't realize that they died.
Well, the big one is when Spider-Man, they do the aliens thing, and he opens the window, and that one flies out the window and freezes to death. The big...
Did not remember that happened until you just now mentioned it. That stuff does not stick with me.
Really
I
old
remember
movie
there was
Aliens?
somebody with a frozen face. That's what I remember.
I think this is the epitome, and I kind of knew this going into it. This is the epitome of a watch once movie for me. I really
The epitome of a what?
Of a watch one time movie. I did not want
I
to come
agree with
back
that.
to this one. Marvel Mania, I was excited for all of them. I really, really did not want to come back to this one because I had the greatest experience I've ever had in a theater with this movie.
Yeah.
It was amazing. I had a great theater experience. They were all really great. I've teared up in this movie. The only time I've ever teared up that wasn't like a sad moment.
Wow.
Like I teared up of joy at this scene when Cap gets the hammer, and I've never had that because it was just the excitement around me in the theater was so awesome. And I knew I was not. I have this with every Avengers movie. I never liked them as well the second time, and in this one especially, I knew I was not going to like as well the second time. And I didn't want to go back to it, but we have to.
Well, I'm sorry for ruining that for you. I could have done it solo, I guess.
No, it's okay. I'm sure I would have went back to it eventually, but I haven't since the theater. I haven't gone back to this because of that reason.
I agree with you though. This one and let me say too that like Infinity War gave me that thing, and I've said this before, that I didn't think I could get again from an Avengers movie, which is I felt like I was finally seeing a big comic event on screen, and I had that before, but I didn't think I would ever have that experience again, and it recreated that for me. This was kind of a different experience from that. It's hard to describe even exactly what it was, because there's a little bit of that, or maybe it's just like the rest of it. Because I always said that this is not two movies and it is two movies, like, all at the same time. And when you get to the end of this, there's a part of me that is, like, really geeking out and appreciating the reunion of it all.
Yeah.
And also annoyed at that all at the same time. Where, like, we kind of just stopped telling story for 10 minutes so that we can do curtain calls for everybody. So that people just come in and it's like, oh, yay, yay! Like, it's like a reunion for a TV show that hasn't been on for 20 years. And we're all just, like, it forgets it's a movie, and it's just people walking out on stage. And it's like they all coordinated beforehand and decided who was going to come out when and everything. And, like, if you start thinking about it at all, it completely falls apart. But in the theater, I really appreciated and enjoyed all of that. So, yeah, in that way, you're absolutely right. It is a consummate watch one-time movie. I'll never feel that about those moments again. Like, I can kind of go back to where I was and be like, I remember, feeling something about this. But watching it now, all I can do is go, yep, they're all back now. Like,
yeah, it's you brought this up when we did the Snyder Cut earlier, where it was manipulating you at the end with the music, and that's totally what this is, and I'm aware of it. But the first time, I was just all in, man. Like that first viewing was so good.
And I'm not necessarily arguing with it that hard. It's a risk you're taking that it won't hold up great on repeat viewings. It will be fun to go back and show to your kids, right? Like when you watch.
That's how you had that experience again, as you have it through their eyes. Yeah, totally.
Well, that too. I didn't think of that, but I'm just saying that, like, for them, getting to watch these in rapid succession like a TV show, you might appreciate that stuff, as much, or maybe not, because you didn't have to wait 11 years for it to happen, I guess. But I was just suggesting that, like, if all of this was, like a TV show, and you forget that we're making more stuff after this, and this was the finale, it's a really good finale. If you'd done this as the end of a 7-season TV show, it'd be hard to argue with it.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have issues with the reunion stuff. I give them that. I feel like they've earned that 23 movies in or whatever it is.
It's interesting you say that, because I felt the same way, and I didn't know you thought that. I thought I was going to have to argue with you on it. I thought you were in the other camp.
I know Dan or Eric feel that way, and that's totally fine. I understand that.
I don't know why I thought that.
I give it to them, man. I mean, they've totally earned it. They've done something that no other film franchise has ever done. I'll give them a little bit of patting themselves on the back at this point.
Well, and the whole greatest hit stuff and going back in time, they handled that a lot better than I thought they would.
Mm-hmm.
There was more actual, weight and stakes and stuff to that than I thought there was in actual storytelling than I expected. Because they could have contrived a reason to go back to a lot more, different places. They relegated themselves to 3, and they went back to a movie that nobody likes just because it was the only place that made sense to go to. Like, that's story driven, man. Like, you have to go back to Dark World. Nobody's going, yay, Dark World. In fact, in the theater, they're downplaying so much the movie they're in. I went a whole viewing without even realizing we were in Dark World somehow.
No, we do nothing. We just talked to
his mom.
No, I mean, this came out Iron Man came out. I was 16, man. Like I've been following this franchise my whole adult life, like 12 years.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's impossible not to get emotional at this scene. For me, anyway.
So, is this the
so
crowd?
Crazy in the
Was that the crowd pleasing thing to you that it was to a lot of people, or were you like, yeah, whatever? Like,
no, that was it. That was the moment I teared up. That was
oh
when the
wow!
whole theater stood up and like screamed and like it was nuts.
Okay, I was confused as to about which moment you were talking about earlier because I think you accidentally said Thor with the hammer and you meant Cap with the hammer.
Oh yeah, no, Cap with the hammer.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, it was crazy.
I have a. I mean, this doesn't ruin it or anything. It's a wonderful comic book moment, obviously. Like it's great. I can still ask questions, you guys. Like I love that too. But I just want to ask, why now? Why is he more worthy now than he was when he tried to pick it up in Age of Ultron?
Fans have come up with a reason for this. Obviously, it's not in the movie. It's
well, of course they have.
So the only they think that or they just posit that the only thing that was holding him back was that he knew that Bucky killed Tony's parents, which we find out he knows in Civil War. And once he got that off of his chest and like all that came out on the table, that was the one big flaw that he had. So now he's worthy. But of course the worthy thing means nothing because Thor is worthy in this movie. and
yeah. And it's made a little weirder by the fact that it's made... I'm sorry, what?
No, I'm just saying Thor, the character was never more worthy than Cap, ever. So, like, it doesn't make sense that Cap wouldn't be able to pick up.
Yeah. Here's the part where we kind of make this weird leap. He's kind of acting like he's known these people this whole time.
He's just really ticked that they thwarted his plan.
Sure, yeah. I guess. Yeah, and people say that makes him feel a lot more one-dimensional all of a sudden, and I get why they feel like that. I kind of buy that he could get to this place. I think it's just the writing. I'm with DJ. I think it's just the way we talk about it. But I was gonna say with the hammer, it's yeah, okay. So like all of these vehicles were in that ship, and like, okay, you can bring all of that down from just that ship. And then aren't we going to have those big, like, living alien ships also, or is it just the one?
No, because I remember specifically that Giant Man, like, punches one down himself.
Yeah. Okay. But about the hammer, I was going to say that it's made even a little bit weirder by the fact that it's an old hammer. Like, it came back from the past and decided Captain America is more worthy than he used to be.
Yeah, there's a ton of ships. Look at that. I guess they're supposed to all be coming out of the ship, but how the heck did that one Pym particle that you said isn't in the movie, but she must have sent him one, brought that...
She must have sent him one. Yeah, because it's not like Nebula had extra ones when she was back in time.
I agree, Professor Zoom. He says, yeah, the whole worthy thing, I completely went down the toilet after Ragnarok.
Well, and it's funny because I mentioned that it's a hammer that wouldn't... I mean, I don't know if the hammer is sentient and knows anything, but if it does, maybe part of the reason that works is because the hammer doesn't realize that that Captain America and Iron Man went at it in Civil War, and that like maybe it would think that he was less worthy now because of some of the stuff he's done recently, but it's from 2014 and none of that's happened yet. But I'm kidding, because obviously it's about...
I think it's just like a Green Lantern thing.
The hammer reads you like a sorting hat. Like, I realize that.
But yeah, all this played great for the first time, obviously, for me. It's totally a Power Rangers moment where Thanos just watches them all get there and suit up and stuff and take their masks off.
So with what you were saying a minute ago, Chewbacca's lover says like that they've earned it now, and so you're okay with some of the reunion stuff. He says that's like saying a clip show earns its existence because people love the show and the show is a hit. But it's not a clip show, though. Like, they are actually telling story with it.
No one earns clip shows. Clip shows are just because they're cheap and they don't have money to make an episode. They're terrible.
And I'm not sure if... DJ, I don't know if you would be saying that they earned it as much if too much of that stuff was stuff we've seen before. You seem to really appreciate that when we go back to those periods, we're going to like off the beaten path stuff that we hadn't seen before.
Yeah, I like that they're creative about it. They could have been super lazy and just like did lines that we know the whole time, and it could have just. That's why I don't agree with people who say it's just a nostalgia fest, because I think it easily could have been, and it's like just a hair's breadth.
I was surprised it wasn't, and I felt
it.
like I kind of had standards about what that would look like, and they beat through that for me. But this is just a bunch of curtain calls. It's really nice of Thanos' army to wait for them all to show up.
Yeah, it's a Power Rangers moment.
It is a Power Rangers moment.
I love that.
So,
like,
I have issues with that.
We just spent 10 minutes getting assembled.
Yeah, that's not my issue with it, though. I mean, you're right, that's funny. Like, they did all that already. Maybe he should have said that. Maybe as you started seeing the things open, he's oh, this is the time for that line, right? My issue with it is that it's never been said before in the movies. And I think that's really weird. And I don't like the Age of Ultron thing where he almost says it, but the movie is cutesy about it. It's too good to actually say it on screen. It's like, Avengers? Oh, he's not going to say it. And, like, normal people, like, now everybody knows what Avengers Assemble is, but even at that point, with Age of Ultron came out, I guarantee you there were audience members that were like, what was he going to say? I don't even, because people wouldn't know that that was a phrase necessarily. You would if you were in Europe, because Avengers was called Avengers Assemble there. But
yeah,
I just think it's weird that after all this time, we finally earned Avengers Assemble. He should have said it somewhere before this.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's... See, like, that man is not worthy. The guy who's so like...
No!
Insecure and, like, jerk-facey that he's like, no, you get the little one, I'm the man, I get the big one. Like, that's not a worthy guy.
But also, it's motivation to be proactive because the Hammer is still decided he's worthy. That's silly. Where it's like, oh, well, if the Hammer says I'm worthy, I guess I'll act kind of partly worthy then. How's he any better than he was in the first Thor movie?
He's not. He's worse.
Right?
You get the little one. Like, that's not a guy who's...
But yeah, just to reiterate, yes, I was I couldn't help but be moved when everybody came out like that. And yes, I was.
That's what, that should be the logo for Sony's movies. They should just show that scene.
Just that, a shot of everybody standing, yeah. I don't like this Gamora thing. It is so typical TV stuff, right?
It's just...
It's like they finally got together. Is anybody riveted by this? Is anybody excited to see them have to get back together again? Also, they're one of the most awkward
I'm not putting it past Guardians 3 to just skip ahead far enough that it happens off screen.
I would be okay with that, to be honest with you, but because I don't want to have to sit through it. So that is one of the most awkward lines in the movie, and if you think about it too much, it's really very strange. So Nebula says as a joke, and I get that it's a joke, but she goes, "It was." But like in dating Star-Lord, it was between him or a tree. The point that they finally start dating, the tree is baby tree. So that makes that really awkward.
In the first movie, they were getting there. They were starting to. Their
not according to her. She says there's no thing, and he through all of 2 says there's an unspoken thing, and she's not committed at all whatsoever to actually dating him yet.
But they were flirting, at least, is what I'm saying. I think she's denying it, but yeah, they weren't dating. You're right.
It's an awkward line.
And it's not, because there's also Drax.
I stand by that.
There's more people. It's just
yeah. Could have, yeah. So what? You're not gonna say raccoon because like that's gross and creepy? Like, how's it worse than a tree?
Yeah, she should have said it was between him, a tree, a raccoon, a Drax, or a mantis.
Or a mantis!
Well,
I know which one I think is the best option at that point, I guess, but anyway.
It is cool that they actually give Ant-Man and the Wasp something to do in this scene. Wouldn't expect that.
Yes, make eye contact and nod real quick. And then, no, I'm kidding. But no, that's
Whoa.
good. I like that they're working together.
Clint.
Obviously, it's super sad that this is the last we're going to see Chadwick Boseman, but thank God he was around for this.
Yeah. And again, such a tiny role. Like Infinity War and Endgame would have played out so differently if they knew how crazy big his movie would have been or was going to be.
Oh, I totally agree, yeah.
Hey, I know her. We just
So-
watched a whole show about her.
We just watched a whole 9 episodes of her being in a sitcom part of the time. Her being this angry and this being as revengey as it is, it helps WandaVision play out as well as it does, I think.
Yeah, that's great.
Because if you didn't have that scene, you'd be like, oh, she's like revenge angry? And like maybe we could be led to believe that. I'm not, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but it is nice that it's set up there.
And she wasn't able to be there, obviously, when the Thanos that killed Vision did it. But it's nice that she gets the second chance to just kill a Thanos.
That's true.
And and she almost does. I think he just he just calls the ship to shoot at her, and that's what stops her. But she's about to take him out right here. See, there's one of the guys who's dead.
Wait, what?
It was just one of the guys that got killed in Infinity War. One of the generals, the 4 generals. I don't know what they're called.
Sorry.
The Black Order.
My audio balance is really bad now because the movie got loud. I just couldn't hear things.
Hear me over the thousands of blasts that keep happening.
I did not expect Pepper to get to actually do the rescue thing beyond just having the costume or a costume for 6 seconds in Iron Man 3. And I did really appreciate that she got to do that for a minute. And it set up really well with the mask at the beginning, and I felt like an idiot for not calling it. Like, duh. Because he's like, that's a thing I'm making for Mommy. And by the way, we didn't mention this, but when she says, when he's like, oh, did you get in the garage again? If I'm Tony Stark, I would make absolutely certain there's no way that my kid can get in that garage.
She could kill herself. She could blow up the house.
He doesn't remember what happened in Iron Man 3 when he almost killed his
I don't get the
his
Pepper
girlfriend
thing.
With neuro Iron Man armor.
So is the idea that he's been working with her flying suits for a while, and this is just a new one he's making for her? Because if so, how does she know how to use this?
It better be, otherwise she's really she's an absolute natural, if not. And I'm sure people are gonna say, "Well, it's been 5 years," but like when he says, "I'm making a surprise for Mommy," it's hard not to assume that she doesn't even know about it, and this is the first time she's going to wear a superhero suit. But maybe that's not true. Maybe she's been working with the regular armor for a while, and he's going to give her own finally. Although, what's weird about it is, you get the sense that they're off living their own life apart from everything else, and he's not out being a superhero. Maybe he is. Maybe he is still out being a superhero. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I definitely got the sense that he was just away from it all and done with it and just working with his family.
It makes it kind of weird that he's making suits, but then that's also pretty consistent with Iron Man 3, where it's like, I'm never going to stop being Iron Man. I can't help myself. Like... So,
yeah, and there's a great line in this where she says, "Me trying to stop you is my
guess
only."
It was just the one shit,
failure.
But I don't buy that it got here. Yeah, maybe she sent back 2 vials. Would 2 vials do it? But I'm pretty sure you need all 4, and that's why I said I had that theory that he grabbed exactly 4. I'm remembering this now, where it was like, okay, he grabs 4, and then they need 2 to get back. And then she has exactly enough to send one there and for him to come back. Unless the particles themselves could be used to send the particles.
Everyone calls her a Deus Ex Machina. I like how much she's not a Deus Ex Machina, because her destroying the ship doesn't do anything. Like, Tony still gets rid of everyone anyway.
Well, that's true.
It helps for the moment, because it was shooting them, but, like... it doesn't solve anything.
You're right. It's maybe hyperbolic to call it a Deus Ex Machina. It feels like it in the moment, but it's not like there's not still a bazillion ground troops. And they make a big deal to show you, like, there's still a lot they have to deal with, and if Tony doesn't do what he does, a lot of them probably don't make it out of here alive. That is a really good point. Although,
it's
you
weird
could make
to say
the
I
argument
like
that
how...
is... Sorry, what?
Okay.
What were you saying?
No, I was just going to say it's weird to say that I like how useless she is in this movie, but it's not her movie. It's this character's movie, and I want them to solve their own problems.
Could you make the argument, though, that as powerful as she is, maybe she should be able to take out more of this all by her lonesome? It's a question. I guess I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she can just start blasting him.
Yeah.
She just got knocked out, though. Doesn't she fight Thanos for a little bit by herself? I think that's what she does.
Buzz the Sim, the director said Thanos and his scientists reverse engineered the Pym particle, and they just shrunk the entire ship and everything in it, like an Ant-Man when they shrunk that glass cage with the goat in it. Okay. But...
yeah, that would work.
Sure, but again, I don't mean to be a broken record. It's not in the movie. Our characters have each needed a separate thing, so when you say reverse engineer, that's more than I would expect necessarily he'd be able to do without an explanation about that.
And this
it's perfectly reasonable to question how it happened without knowing that, and because it's not in the movie, I guess I just have to, kind of hope that's what it is. Like, it's very easy to retroactively tell your audience what happened in your movie.
This further like this takes the stupid thing in Infinity War further, where he actually has to close his hand to use it or has to snap to use it. It's like what? He had it on, he was about to snap and she stopped him, and then it doesn't work.
So Doctor Strange tells Tony Stark, and there's of course that question of whether we buy that everything that happened really makes sense as the only one of several million possibilities. Like when you backtrack all of that, it's like Doctor Strange makes sure that Thanos has particular stones, that things go the direction they do. I don't know. It does read a little bit retroactive. I see why people are not sure they buy that. But it's a little bit strange that it's a little odd. I shouldn't say strange. It's a little odd, DJ. The Doctor Strange is like,
it's a little Steven.
Well, I can't tell you what happens or it won't happen, which is kind of tantamount to telling him sort of what happens.
Yeah, he basically tells him what he needs to do.
And then when he does that, it's like, no, this happens because you knew what would happen and told him. Like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know why you won't tell him. I assume he didn't want to tell him because he thought it would make him not do it.
Yeah.
But then he basically tells him in that scene.
And
like,
they don't trust each
one.
other, which I don't love, but I guess it's supposed to be it's maybe part of that whole thing where he's like, well, I don't know if he'll actually do it. Or maybe he's seen contingencies where Doctor Strange does tell him and Tony Stark doesn't do it because of that.
Yeah. But it's not like a birthday wish. It's not like if he tells him, it won't come true.
I want to think that when Tony snapped his fingers, he very specifically thought, I want to make sure that they all disintegrate very slowly and that Thanos is the last one.
Yeah, Thanos has enough time to sit down and feel really bad about it, and then he dies.
God, I'm not going to have the chance now to fix the universe or get revenge.
Now there are 2 timelines that don't have Thanos's.
Stephen Murphy, you could have brought reinforcements or something, Carol. I know you think you're the cavalry or something, but it would have helped if Skrulls showed up. I don't want no Skrulls.
What can Skrulls do besides shapeshift?
They have ships. They could fire guns. What's Mantis gonna do?
Exactly. When Mantis is in that all-female shot, she's like, "Oh!" I'm like,
yeah.
Are you gonna read their minds?
And yeah, we didn't talk about that. I know people complain about that. I don't want to get real deep into that whole thing. It's silly. It is gratuitous. I agree with people that say that it's gratuitous. It's like, look at us. We got our
Yep.
big a female chick shot, or female chick. That's great. Our big our big shot of all of our female superheroes, but I don't know how they all coordinated that. There's a lot of that in this, where it's just like, how'd you guys all coordinate getting together? Like, not one man thought to join them and help out. Okay.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not
that's
supposed
just
to think about that. And then people that like that, of course, turn around and go, well, if you saw it in a comic panel, you wouldn't question it at all. And the difference is, when you have moving pictures, it's a lot... You're thinking a lot more about spatial orientation. Like, I should think about that in a comic panel. It would still be kind of silly and a problem in a comic panel. But you're right. Like, I may not be as likely to be thinking about spatial orientation in comics. I tend to think more about that with moving pictures.
Iron Family reunion. This really cements him as Iron Boy. Those people must have. Those people must point to this scene because it's literally War Machine, Pepper, and Spider-Man are the only ones that are sitting here with him right now.
Cinegraphic
All
and
the
a couple
Iron
other people in the comments, I think, or maybe it was just him. We're complaining really hard about the Iron Boy thing.
He's like full. Yeah, this suit is like full on metal. He looks like he fits right in with Rescue and War Machine right here. They could be a family.
Stephen Murphy, we're all making fun during the sad scene. Well, the movie's still going, and we weren't done talking about the thing we were talking about. This is handled well. I gotta say, I did not feel anything about it in the theater. And I know I'm probably alone in that, but I'll tell you why. I just saw it coming. Like, I knew this is how it had to end. So, like, it's handled well. I like it. It did not emotionally resonate because I spent a year going, well, of course they're killing Tony off in the next movie. And the way they did it is cool, and I didn't necessarily expect him to do it with the Stones. I knew he was dying in this movie, and probably at the end of it. So I was kind of just waiting for this.
Yeah, I don't exactly remember what my response was. I know the thing hit me way more.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
just a
that
huge
I
Cap
absolutely
fan.
had a reaction to.
Yeah.
And it was a surprise, and I was stunned by it. I didn't think we were going to do that. And I didn't think
It's
we would get rid
unfortunate
of
that
both
they have
of
to
them.
break their rules to give us that scene, but I mean, I'm kind of glad they did because I like that scene so much.
Well, yeah, and that's why it doesn't kill it, because, like, however you have to get there, it was really worth it. It just breaks my brain the more I think about it.
And I think that's what they've come out and said was that they really wanted him to go back and get that dance, and then they worked backwards and made all the time travel so they could do that scene, which is fine. I mean, that scene really works for me.
Again, I always have two brains with these things, guys. Like, I'm looking at it from a writer's perspective as a narrative, and I'm looking at it as a fan and emotionally how it resonated. Those things do go together, but sometimes they're also quite separate.
Yeah, and luckily I don't have to look at it from that first perspective because I'm not a reviewer, so I have no obligation.
That's the thing is, like, I can't just be a fan watching these things. I'm also like a writer and a writing teacher workshopping. Like, it's my brain. It's what I do.
That's a cool shot of Wakanda. I didn't really remember that.
Yeah, it's great. And she has, you won't understand this because you don't watch Star Trek, but she has a Guinan hat. There's absolutely a Whoopi Goldberg Guinan hat.
There's Cassie again. New Cassie. There is one of the Russo's daughters that plays his daughters.
Oh, I didn't know it. Professor Zoom, why didn't Doctor Strange use the Time Stone specifically on Tony to bring him back to life?
To bring him back to life.
I'm still fuzzy on how exactly the stones work and what their limitations are.
Because Tony has to do that. If Tony doesn't do the thing that kills him, then they lose. Then they don't win.
Yeah, and if you're using the Time Stone to do it, then you're just rolling time backwards, and then that
you'd have to still do it.
Yeah, somebody would still have to do it. You couldn't just bring him back. If you could make an argument for one of the other stones, maybe, but I think you would need all 6 of them.
I've heard people say that this should have been where Stan's cameo was.
I don't know how I feel about that. That
I'm
seems
very mixed. That would have been
it's
very
classy, but it's also a little too
send-off,
meta.
but it also would have distracted. I think it would have distracted from the emotional weight of the scene.
Because where would you put it? You put it at the beginning, and it's all you're thinking about. You put it at the end, and it maybe, guts everything you just had because you're thinking just about that. I get why people wanted that. I'm also mixed on it. I'm back and forth because I'm sure some people are thinking, but if you remember the Watcher thing, then you could just think about it that way, where like the Watcher sent him and just let him, be there in the background. Maybe they don't even see him. Maybe he's not like. Could you have done it like a Force Ghost thing? Where he's there, but like that would have been really distracting too. But just to show that like nobody sees him, he's in like almost like a hologram kind of form. It would take too much explanation. Most people wouldn't even understand what was happening.
Yeah. Well, yeah, this score is great. We've already talked about it. We've got to do that score video. You're gonna do it on Rewind, but if we don't do a video, we just need to talk about it because I love talking scores.
I'm okay doing a live version of that and maybe doing a more streamlined rewind later or something, or just doing it with you because you want to do it. I mean, I'm willing to do that.
Oh yeah, we could just do a fun video where we talk back and forth about it, and then you could actually do the official one later if you want to.
Yeah. Well, that could help me like decide my rankings and maybe we could do more than I would on the rewind or something.
I thought that was so cool that they brought back Harley for that.
Yeah. And that they took the risk for that, because most people looked at that and were like, who the heck is that guy? And I had that too. I wasn't sure who he was.
Oh, I love Iron Man 3, but I know a lot of people don't.
That they didn't care. Well, I like it too, but I haven't seen that kid since then, so I didn't know that was him.
Different.
Like, I didn't recognize him.
And we also, about the Stan Lee thing, we already end that scene with Nick Fury coming back, which we haven't seen the whole movie, so that's already... So if we would have did that and then Stan Lee after that, it would have been a lot.
He's on the roof. We go up and he's standing on the roof.
And he's on the roof and he's
Professor
like...
Zoom, but
Mr. Stank!
Talking about Doctor Strange, but he did that in his own movie on Wong and all the people who were killed by Kaecilius. Oh, did he bring them back? Oh, that's true. He did kind of bring them back.
I have only seen Doctor Strange once. I can't help you here.
I would have to go back and look at it and see the context.
I think it only turns back time. I don't think it can just bring people back.
But would the same threat have happened with that? The way that... I'm just not sure. So this is so minor, but I love the thing about the cheeseburgers. I think just because I felt rewarded as a fan remembering Iron Man 1 as well as that we go back to a thing from 11 years ago. And it's a very minor moment where he says, I want a... He comes back from being tortured and he says, I want an American cheeseburger. And she says, I want cheeseburgers. And the guy who directed that movie is sitting next to her and says, I'll give you all the cheeseburgers you want. I freaking love that. It's so good. It's so classy. And it watches like an ad-lib. It watches like she came up with cheeseburgers and he went with it. And I bet it wasn't that way. I bet they scripted it. I don't know for sure. And I've not looked at any of the special features with this movie yet. But oh goodness, do I love that scene. And that hit me emotionally way harder than Tony's actual death did. And the funeral too, like, and the proof that Tony Stark has a heart thing, like everything about how that is handled is wonderful. His speech in the hologram is very good. His reasoning for doing it, where he's like, there's a reason to think none of us will come back, so I'm making a message. Like, that makes sense. The way it calls back to the message he gives at the beginning is really good. Like, I'm not saying his death is bad. The aftermath of his death is way better. It's kind of like Death of Superman, a funeral for a friend for me, where like I more care about funeral for a friend than I do the way Superman actually died. Stephen Murphy, I wonder if Favreau suggested the cheeseburger thing. I would not be surprised. God, I love that. I don't love this, but I don't love any of the Thor stuff.
No. Why are you wearing those sunglasses?
He looks like he's Tim Burton about to get an interview.
We should time this. This goes on so long. I was like, stop.
41:45 is where it starts. I'm sure it's not as long as it feels. But here's the thing. With all the stuff that we're talking about where the Russos, kind of like Snyder, have to come back and explain things to you that aren't in the movie, I find myself looking at scenes like this going, if if Marvel was willing to let your movie be 3 hours long, you had the real estate to give us some of that stuff, and you wasted it on stuff like this. And like, yeah, you want Drax to get a line of dialogue and whatever. You know, I get that.
I don't. Not this Drax. Give me Guardians 1 Drax.
DJ. John Kelling, God, I love cheeseburgers. Me too, buddy.
No,
Five Guys for the win. Sorry, what?
No, this is just because Chris Pratt and Chris Hemsworth both love to improv, and they're just like going and going and going. And the directors, for whatever reason, can't let any of it go. They love it.
Yeah, it's like there was a theatrical version, but now we finally, 4 years later, released the Russo's cut. And that's it. I don't think that scene was actually longer than a minute and a half.
No, I'm not saying the scene. I'm saying that one joke where they just keep going back and forth. Like,
you just want to time that? That was at least 45 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, that was most of the scene. Like, no, I'm in charge. No, of course you're in charge. No, I'm not in charge. Yeah.
Stephen Murphy, yeah, Thor really has no idea what he is, and neither does the MCU. He starts wanting the throne. He's not ready. Makes sense. Then Dark World, he says it isn't his purpose. Ragnarok, he finally assumes leadership. Now he's like, I don't know what I want.
Immediately gives it off to
Triple B. We just keep doing that with him. How do you feel? I want to talk about this for a second before we get to the moment. How do you feel about the fact that Sam walks over to old Steve on the bench, and Winter Soldier just tells him to go ahead and go over there? I never really understood that. Like, it was almost like that's what the directors wanted that scene to be, so that's what he does. I don't know why they don't both walk over. Never quite understood that. They're both equally his best friend, arguably. And I'm just not really sure why they don't both walk over.
Oh, I always assumed that Bucky just, like, because he's an old geezer and he's in his clothes, but he has the shield, I assumed that Bucky realized what was going on and he was giving the shield to Sam. Like, why else would he have that shield there?
I think a lot of Bucky fans would argue with you and be like, why would Bucky assume he wouldn't be getting the shield? Because a lot of people want him to get it. But...
yeah, and I have no attachment to that character other than the MCU, and I don't think that this... I'm going to get so much hate for this. Who would have thought this would be the thing? I don't think that this version of Bucky can be Captain America. He's been a... I know he was against his will, but he was a murderer for decades and decades and decades for Hydra. Like, how do you...
I think there's a chance the TV show could get him to a place where you would buy it, but in this moment, I totally agree with that. But you're right if it's all about the shield, and yes, it's sitting there. Now, the way he reveals it, you kind of wonder if Sam noticed it when he walked over there. But I don't know, it's just the way this plays, it really feels like, and like the actors do a great job, but it really feels like it's just, this is what happens in the scene, so that's what he does. I don't quite understand it. I would think that they would both want to go talk to him. Ren Davis, I think it's because Bucky already had his goodbye with Cap, because Cap told him before leaving. Oh, did he? Is that what happens? He tells Bucky what he's gonna do? Is that what was supposed to happen? Because
people hating us for not thinking Bucky should be Cap.
I didn't know that, if that's the case. Interesting. Chewbacca's lover, old Cap, is effed up and wrong. I don't know what you mean by that. I think
they're Bucky fans.
I think the old man makeup looks great.
Yeah, he looks
makeup, CG, whatever. I don't care. I think he looks really, really natural. John Kelling, remember the shield is designed slightly differently. Yes, let's take a look at that, shall we? When it comes out. Blue Dragon 5 left. He's not here to defend himself. So far, it looks like the shield. He's going to pick it up. If it's supposed to look different, I never noticed it. And if it weren't for the confusion about the time travel, I wouldn't care where it came from. I wouldn't mind that it's kind of a who cares mystery where it's like, yeah, he's got a shield. Like, man, one line. I got to go to another timeline. I came back.
Well, the only thing that ruins it is he's on the bench. Like if he came back out of the portal,
What's different about it?
it looks a little different,
Got
but
like a
that's just
little
how
star
from
sort of thing
movie
in the
to
middle of the star, maybe? I don't know.
like from movie to movie, the suits always look slightly different anyway. It's not like
but
we've
like
had consistent stuff. The
again, he's
shields
not here to
probably
defend himself. Blue Dragon 5, I'm supposed to look at that and somehow immediately go, oh yes, of course, it's a different shield. I don't understand that. I'm so confused. Chewbacca's lover Cap hit on his niece. Well, there's that.
Yeah, which is why I like the
But
Russos
I mean, before that happened. But yeah, sorry, what?
So, like I said, the writers and the director have different views on this. The director say that he lived out in the different timeline because it's timeline time travel, and then he came back to our timeline at some point, and we just don't know how he did that.
Yeah.
But the writers swear by, and they've doubled down on this, that the way they wrote it is, like I said, there's more to that scene with the Ancient One, and she actually says, and the Russos cut this out because they didn't want to deal with this, and they couldn't have a Loki show, but she says that when they return the stones, it closes all the other timelines. So there's only one timeline again. So in order for him to stay back in time, he had to stay in this timeline, and he's just had to been hiding the whole time, and now there's two Caps, and that was just too much of a headache. So the Russos were like, we don't want to do that. We're going to change it. We're going to keep the timelines open. So we can have Cap live in a different timeline and not have to hide, and also we can have a Loki show because he's in a different timeline too. If we close the timelines, then there's no Loki show. I don't know what happens to Gamora.
Well, and if you say the timelines are all open except for the ones that you put the stones back in, then that helps with my confusion with all the time travel, because folks are assuming that every time you go back, you've branched off into another timeline, but the Ancient One was like, the stones branch off timelines, you gotta put the stones back, it closes the timelines back. So then my question is, but then does it close back all the ones that weren't related to the bringing the stones out? What about the ones that just happened because you went back in the first place? So the Rousseau's way is a little better in my brain in making this whole thing make sense, if only we talked more about branching timelines besides the Ancient One scene. John Kelling, $2 Super Chat, stars slightly different, white stripe is split. Isn't that paint? Does that have anything to do with the metal? That's what I don't understand when people are assuming.
I don't even know why we're talking about what does it prove that it's different? I'm totally lost. I don't even know what does that prove.
Well, it proves that because DJ, one of the points I was making earlier, again, just with what we have, not what anybody said about it, that made the movie retroactively, is one of the things that would be changed when you tell me that you can't change anything in the past is that he got that shield from somewhere. So if he didn't go to another timeline, this was before I knew that they had said that. When I thought he just had to be in our timeline the whole time, where did he get the shield? And then Blue Dragon 5's whole thing, because I assumed it had to be the same one he always had, and there's two in that timeline somehow. And he's like, well, it's clearly a different one. Like, somebody made another one. And I'm like, how is that obvious? I would almost bet Blue Dragon 5 money. I'm not going to. I would almost bet him money that if it's ever explained, we will be told that that is the regular shield from the 40s from another timeline. And not like one that he had made for him, like in Wakanda or something.
Well, wouldn't...
But maybe. It could be made from... I just don't know that just looking at it.
Wouldn't that mean that in that timeline, he took the shield from that timeline's Cap before he got it broken from Civil War?
Well, there's also that. But it's not his timeline, so who cares? He doesn't care. It's fine. Busted Sim, don't forget Cap also took Mjolnir back as well. Yes, but he left the timeline when he did it, and we're acting like if you leave the timeline, nothing changes in the timeline. Either because it's branched off or because it's fixed. I'm not sure which. But the difference here is he stayed in it. Unless he went to another timeline. But I don't know that, because it's not in the movie. So if he stayed in it, how does he have a shield? Unless he went to Wakanda and had somebody build it. Or something.
Yeah, I kind of like the writer's idea better, where all the timelines close at the end, because they're kind of jerks. They just take Thor's hammer from that timeline, so that Thor doesn't have a hammer, and they just take the shield, and like they don't care about the other timelines at all.
I guess I just have not stared enough at that shield to be able to tell the difference. Because John Kelling is like, yes, the actual make of the shield is different. Okay. I guess I just did not care enough to pay that much attention to it.
All right, we've got a lot of super chats, so I guess we can do that now if you're cool with that.
Real quick before we do that, let me just comment on this. So super classy to have all of the actors write their names in cursive at the end, give their signatures. That is a thing that is done at the end of Star Trek VI, which is the send-off for the original series crew in Star Trek, and the only other place I've ever seen it. And I want to say I read somewhere that the Rousseaus actually got this idea from that, but I don't know if that's true. I can't remember. But it immediately reminded me of that. It's the only other place I've ever seen it, and it was really, really classy there, and I was excited to see it here too.
Oh, you're right. Matthew Patton is correct.
What's that?
Cap did take the hammer back to that reality.
Oh yeah, because he's holding it, right?
Yeah. He's right. I just forgot about that.
I just think it's so strange to have a whole conversation about how you can't change anything in the past and then have a big plot point about having to take things back to those locations. It's weird.
Well, that's why I think it's clear that it's creating new timelines, because if you can't change anything past, anything you change will create a new timeline.
But if you can't change the past, then why would it matter to put anything back in those timelines? So you created a new timeline by changing something, but if you can't change anything, like if you went back and it would be the same, what does it matter if you bring anything back to it?
Well, the reason, I mean, when they say they can't change anything, it's because it makes a new timeline. It's not saying like you physically can't change it. If you change it, it's just a new timeline, so nothing would change in your timeline.
But you're right. But by thinking that there would be anything to put back, you've said that something has changed in stock in your timeline.
No, they just had to return the stones to the timelines that they took them from, because they didn't have them anywhere.
Oh, well, if that's what's again, we just need to talk about it more clearly, because if that's what's happening, that would immediately build in to the narrative that Cap is going to alternate timelines and not just to ours. And then it would make perfect sense that he's living out in some other one. But if he's just going back to periods in our timeline, it doesn't make sense he needed to put anything back, because we're told you can't change anything anyway.
No, he's 100% going to the timelines that they took them from in the movie when they went to all the different timelines.
Okay.
Sorry, I should have said,
That's so
weird,
weird, though, because
earlier.
that makes it like an interdimensional device on top of being a time travel device, right?
Well, there's three kinds of timeline. There's the whole where you can change everything. There's the one where it's a constant loop. You can't change anything,
right?
Because whatever you do will just affect the loop. And then the third one is like the timeline theory that this one goes with, which I like that they went with this one, because I didn't want the Days of Future Past like changing things to affect the future, because that one's such a headache.
So, Pat B says you can't change it in your own timeline. They're trying to fix the other timelines for the sake of those others. So you're saying
that's what she says to him.
Even though it doesn't affect the present, if you went back in time, just going back, it would still be missing. And that's because that's what branches off the... God, that's weird. Okay. Boy, I don't think I've ever seen that in anything. And, like, it's just breaking my brain because I'm not quite getting my head around it.
That's why I liked it in the theater, because it was a cool... I'm sure it's been done other places, but it was a cool time travel that I hadn't seen before.
I'm not convinced it makes sense, even within its own rules, but I don't know.
Yeah, the only thing that
and now I don't want to ever do a rewind on this. Maybe I'll do a rewind on it and completely avoid talking about time travel and disappoint everybody.
Yeah, Cap said he's got to clip all the branches because those were different timelines that were branching off, and he had to close them by putting the stones back in those ones.
Chewbacca's lover, I never liked the old Cap thing. It seemed obligatory. Wow, not to me, man.
Guess we're just Cap saps, but we loved it.
Okay, I'm sorry, did we have more super chats?
Yeah, we have some super chats. So Ren
Let's
Davis
get those knocked out.
Says, I think Agent Carter is considered canon because Marcus and McFeely, Captain America writers, worked on the show. And that's the writers of this movie. That's what I keep talking about when I say the writers.
I want it to be. I hope that's true. I keep hearing like blanket statements that none of the TV stuff is, and I saw some people in the comments even saying that like at one time it was considered so, but now it isn't. And I don't know. That's a bummer if that ends up being the case. I guess it doesn't really matter until they contradict it or decide to add something to it. But yeah.
Yeah. Dejan Patterson Powers. Captain Logan, would you agree that comic superheroes are for male entertainment?
Stephen Murphy, half the commentary has been about the time travel problem. I don't think half, but I was just really confused, and people wanted to talk about it, and I was just going to throw out my opinion real quick, but then people kept arguing with me, and I'm not complaining about that, but I didn't want to just let it lie because I was trying to figure it out as well.
Sorry, I thought I explained it. I guess I should have explained it better earlier.
Yeah, but I'm still not buying it entirely. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but I don't think it's fully there. Like I'm still not quite getting it. I don't know if it adds up. But what was that question?
Captain Logan, would you agree that comic superheroes are for male entertainment?
Not exclusively, no. I think that has historically been the audience that they've most been sold to, and that because of that, they've both been written and marketed to the most. It's obviously changed quite a bit in the last several years.
John Kelling, $5. I always assume 2014 Thanos reverse engineered the Pym particles. He doesn't need a time limit. He's jumping forward. Yeah, and someone else said that later. One that Cap read. So
yeah, that
seems to be the assumption.
Oh, real quick, I meant to mention something. The song that closes this out that they're dancing to, if memory serves, I don't know if that's in First Avenger somewhere. I think maybe it is, and I'm just not remembering it. But I'm pretty sure that's the song that's playing in the like surreal dream thing in Age of Ultron when he is when Cap is with Agent Carter. It's a callback to something. It shows up in a movie before that jazz song.
Oh, in the vision that Scarlet Witch makes?
Yes.
I'm
pretty sure that's where that is.
Well, that would make perfect sense because he's dancing with her in that scene because it's a vision.
And that's that moment that he always wished that it had happened that didn't get to.
Yeah.
So
Christian Ogden,
nice bit of continuity there. Nice callback to that. Simmer Rafi says it's from Winter Soldier. Is it also in Winter Soldier? I'm almost positive it's also in the scene I'm talking about, but it's been a while. It's the thing I caught when I was going through the MCU movies with my son like a year and a half ago. We got like halfway through it, and then we went on to something else and never got back to it.
No.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Rohit Dahar says it's in Winter Soldier. It's playing in... Oh, that's right! That's where it is! That's where it is. It's in... thank you. It's in... And that's where I noticed it, but I thought it was this other thing. I wasn't sure. It's in Cap's apartment when Nick Fury has that record playing, and he's and then they get the wall blown out right after that. That's what cool. when he says my wife left me. That whole scene. Anyway.
All right, Christian Ogden, $5. Cap saying Avengers Assemble meant nothing to me because the MCU never established that's something he's supposed to do. It's pointless fan service.
I had that.
See,
too.
I have a weird experience with that because I've never read anything that has that. I've never watched any TV show where they say that, but somehow I still knew what he was going to say in Age of Ultron. It's just like, I don't know. It's just like so in the culture that it was just like. My mind filled in the blank there, and I don't know why. I don't know where it came from. So it's not something that I like was waiting for them to do. It's just like, I don't know.
Yeah, even if it was fully in the culture and everybody understood it, and I'm not convinced that that's true. Maybe at the point that it came out, but I think like when these movies start getting made and when we allude to it at the end of Age of Ultron, I really don't think that's true. And like you're in circles where people would know that even if you've never read it. I mean, like you're a superhero fan, you've read comics, like you know people that know that stuff. I'm sure there are 65-year-old grandmothers that wouldn't know that. And my problem with it isn't even so much that it's the first time he says it. It's that why does he say it if it's not a thing here? Like, I guess he said it at Age of Ultron, but like, so I guess there's that. But yeah, it doesn't resonate because we've never done it, and it seems like it should be a callback before it's the first time finally.
Yeah, it's definitely fan service. It just didn't catch. I didn't even think about the fact that we hadn't said it because it was just like in my brain somehow.
The only reason I did is because I hate the way we ended that with Age of Ultron. I don't like that at all.
TH1, I've always thought he could lift it, and was just, you might have read this one earlier. You read some of them.
Yeah, I
just
did.
Being
I read a few.
Just being humble and pretending not to be able to lift it, kind of like Clark acting like something is heavy. Oh no, maybe we didn't talk about that.
I really don't think that's what's supposed to be happening in that scene.
Yeah, I don't know about Age of Ultron. That
Because
doesn't seem to be.
He slightly budges it.
Because he's really trying. Like,
it's weird that he so slightly budges it if
vessel.
he's pretending to try that hard. You know what I mean? I think you'd either lift it more or it would stay on the table, or like you're actually pushing but you're pretending to pull. You know that kind of thing.
Dejon Patterson Powers 499. I think the hammer still making Thor worthy is he's still worthy deep down inside despite his insecurities in shape. Well, if it's against his will, if it has nothing to do with his actions, then what's the point? If he's worthy no matter what he does.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought in the first Thor movie, it wasn't about the self-sacrifice. It was about the fact that he was willing to do that his heart was in the right place at that point. I don't think he had to do that and then he earned it. I think in that moment, he could have picked it up.
Okay, this is the one you read from Busted Sim about Thanos and a scientist reverse engineering the Pym particles.
Yes,
so
we talked about that.
And that one you read, Rohit Tohar, there's boxes. Okay, that's also about the star. I think you read both of those about the shield. Here's $5 popped in. Gave us $5.
Hi.
He said, I meant Steve giving Fury $5. This is like when I was wrong about DJ not reading one of my chats once. I am an old man and a fool. Here's $5. Oh, we're getting a little backstory. He's an old man. If his words can be trusted.
Yeah, I don't trust anything he says. But thanks. Here's $5.
And then John Kelling, as far as I'm concerned, all the Marvel shows are canon because nothing contradicts them except Inhumans. Inhumans is just terrible.
Yeah, the main thing I always think about besides that does kind of contradict or just feels really weird that it would be in the same universe is also an Inhumans thing in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I've not watched past like the third or fourth season of that show, so I don't know if stuff in the last seasons do, but I'm pretty sure everything in the Netflix shows can fit okay because it's so far removed. I don't understand the timeline of that at all. I don't know when things are happening in relation to anything in the MCU in those. But as far as Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. goes, you get the Terrigen Mist in, season 2, and a whole bunch of Inhumans pop up, and it creates a lot of chaos, and there's all these people with superpowers everywhere. It's weird that that's never brought up anywhere in the other in the actual movies. I'm gonna call that enough of a contradiction that's a problem. So there's all these people with superpowers because we kind of act like in the MCU that people with superpowers are really few and far between. And not one person ever mentions an Inhuman. That's very strange. Because you'd think that would be like mutants. It's weird that because it was supposed to be. That was the point.
That's all they had at the time. I missed. Yeah. Here's $5. Here's $5. Had a first one before that I missed. He says, $5. What if the timeline changed and in the Avengers, instead of Fury giving Steve $10, he gives him $5? Here's $5. So he was tying that into his
there's always a possibility of butterfly effect messing up things, but I'm pretty sure that wouldn't really wouldn't have made much of a difference. But thank you for the $5.
I love the idea of that whole timeline is just him giving him $5 more than, or
it
$5
branches off the
less
timelines. It makes this whole other Thanos wins in that universe just because it was the wrong dollar amount. It's great.
But that is all the super chats I have. Thanks, guys. Very interactive audience tonight. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Well, thanks a lot for watching. We're finished. The credits have been done for a little while. We had to finish those super chats.
Even the extra Disney Plus credits, that's like an extra 10 minutes on every movie. I don't know why they do that.
And not just movies, they do it with TV shows too. It drives me crazy. Like, you can't binge things on Disney. You have to skip past stuff to keep watching.
Yeah, I don't know. There's like special global streaming service credits at the end of everything, and it adds like 10 minutes.
Blue December, the last canonical reference to the MCU and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is an Infinity War reference in Season 5. I actually know about that. There's a scene with Talbot that I saw in a YouTube video, completely out of context, where somebody's telling him about Thanos. It's like, Thanos is going to come and destroy the world. I'm like, you guys don't even know what the plot of that movie is going to be yet, do you? You're just like, Thanos is coming, bad things are going to happen.
I love that they didn't do any... it was real classy. There's no after credit scenes, no mid credit scene, no after credit scene. But then next time, what do we have? We have the epilogue. I wish it just ended there. I don't like that this is part of Phase 3.
What do you mean?
Spider-Man: Far From Home.
Oh well, sure, yeah.
I wish it could have ended there, and because Far From Home would have fit better in with this new age of like.
WandaVision. You're saying as far as the way the phases break down, or that that didn't come out so soon after this?
Yeah, I just wish it would have ended. That would have been it. That was the saga, and then I wish, because they say that everyone says that Far From Home has to be a part of this phase because it deals so much with the fallout of this movie.
Not
but
enough.
so does WandaVision deals with it more, and Falcon and Winter Soldier is dealing with it more, so it could have been the start of the next phase. It doesn't have to be.
I completely agree with that. Yeah, I don't think it should be an epilogue. I think it should have been the beginning of the next phase, absolutely. Which, I don't care about the phase breakdown thing that much. I don't follow it well. I never remember what is where. I don't care. The problem is more when things are released. That movie should have come out 6 months or a year after this, and I've always said that. And I always said that Marvel should have not jumped right into the next stuff, and now they've been forced not to. Which I think is ultimately going to be good for them, because people have been chomping at the bit for more MCU stuff, and now we're never going to know if I was right, DJ. We'll never know, because I said for a long time it could have shot him in the foot. People might have been, like, not as curious, not as interested in some of the new characters that they were bringing in after, the onslaught of Marvel movies, and this felt like such a good closer, and then you immediately start throwing more stuff at them. Now, it's not going to be immediate. Now, it's all going to be at least a year or two later when people have been chomping at the bit for more new material for everything, and I'm never going to know because it's all going to be successful now.
Yeah, there was so
It's going to definitely be successful now. All of it.
We did so much speculation videos about, like, is it going to work? Is Marvel going to work past Phase 3? Like, and now they lucked out. Like, it happened
they
right
absolutely
after
lucked out.
Far From Home. And they had to push everything off a year.
Because I can't say, look at me, I'm vindicated when it's been a year and we finally start getting this stuff, because maybe it would have been popular without that. I don't know. There's no way to know if I'm right or not.
Well, and I don't know. I'm interested to see if Black Widow, like, we'll never know. If Black Widow would have done better if it came out on time, or if it's going to do better now.
Well, and also we won't know what the box office would have been for that, because they just announced today that that's releasing in July, and that it's going to be the same thing that you have with Mulan and stuff, where I think it is going to theater also, but where you can pay the extra on Disney Plus for their whatever it is they call the premium thing or whatever, which sucks because that means it'll be like $30 again. Maybe they'll make it cheaper. Maybe it'll be like 20. I don't know. But it's been 30 before. I don't know what it was with that What's Her Face the Dragon movie that I didn't see. But anyway, but we'll never know what the box office would have been for that, because a lot of people won't see it in the big screen.
Yeah.
Ben Davis confirmed the pandemic was a plot by Marvel to aid their business.
Okay.
That is not what I'm saying. That is not at all what I am saying.
That is the sign to wrap it up.
I think it might be.
Once we get to conspiracy theories.
Busted Sim, WandaVision was he's joking. WandaVision was released at the perfect time, where people got both their escape from reality and facing the need to escape from that reality, which is an odd benefit for a pandemic. And it coming first was oddly, I think, apt and kind of the right way to go. Because originally, Falcon Winter Soldier was supposed to come out first.
Yeah, I think because that was so different, it helped. I think Falcon and Winter Soldier is probably going to be really good, but it's like more the same feel.
Yeah. and a direct sequel to certain movies, whereas WandaVision, from right away. However, we ultimately felt about that show. Right away is going like, look, we're experimental, we're trying something different, and made a lot of people kind of raise their eyebrows.
Yeah, that made people like, oh, these shows are actually going to be something crazy, something like different, like,
and was intentionally not theatrical, except for the action scenes, and some people hate what those look like, but they were those things obviously were trying to just be Marvel movies. But like the TV stuff, they did their first TV show as a TV show, and Falcon Winter Soldier is obviously, of course, even if you haven't seen it, you can tell from trailers, it's not that. Like it's a 6-hour movie. I mean, it's got more TV pacing, maybe, but I mean, like, it's shot theatrical. It's a
yeah. I mean, I've only seen half of the first episode, but like most of that half of the first episode was a Falcon action scene, so it's definitely got a high budget.
Exactly. So once again, we're going to do a spoiler cast on the first couple episodes of that, and then we'll let the whole show go, and then we'll come back and finish it. And it's only 6 episodes, so it won't be too long before we talk about all of it together. And we could have just waited, but I'm going to be chomping at the bit to talk about it a little bit, so we'll do a little bit of that. And anyway, anything else that we should mention real quick before we
we'll
close up? We're right at the end. We're
see you next time
with this 3-hour epic. Sorry.
No, I'm just saying we'll see you next time with Far From Home. Only got 2 more after that in this phase.
2 weeks. I keep forgetting about Far From Home. I keep going, oh, we have this and then just 2 crappy X-Men movies, but that's not true.
No, we got Far From Home here, which I just found out a couple days ago that I actually own. Sometimes I'll just go through.
I got news for you guys. I have this object in my home.
Sometimes I'll just go through my shelves and I'll just find out that I had something that I didn't know I had. Like, I don't remember buying this at all. It must have been like a Black Friday thing, because I still haven't opened it. It's a 4K, and I know I never bought. I don't think I would have bought that unless it was cheap on Black Friday. But I also found that I have Godzilla King of the Monsters back there, which I had no idea I had. And at one time I must have had interest in watching that movie, because now I have none, and I didn't even know it was there. But
that's really funny.
Don't waste your money, kids. Don't have a Blu-ray wall. It's just a waste of money.
It's really funny that you're just buying a movie, and like, DJ's not a compulsive spender. It's like the only thing he spends money on is movies.
Yeah, it's like we go out once a year on Black Friday, and my wife, and we buy, like, because they're like $5 or $10, and we just buy them, and it's stupid because we never open them.
Oh, is that right? Stephen Murphy says Dark Phoenix is actually before that. Is that true?
I don't know.
I should look that up and make sure. Obviously, we'll make sure and put it in the right order. So it's either Dark Phoenix or Far From Home next, but
Far From Home, Dark Phoenix, Far From Home.
You know what? I think that's right. I think Dark Phoenix must be before that.
Yeah, I didn't see it in the theater, so I have no.
I'm pretty sure that was right before the big summer stuff, and then because Far From Home was still out when I went to Boston and saw Dan. I actually took Dan to see Far From Home. It had been out for a month and he hadn't seen it yet, and I got to sit with Dan the first time he saw it, which was fun. And then we did a second spoiler cast just so that Dan could talk about it.
Yeah, and then New Mutants. I don't know how I'm gonna watch those two. I need to see if those two are on something. I might have to purchase those two, unfortunately. But
yeah, or we can try to rig something up where we could screen share and you could watch it from my end. I've done that with some people.
Oh yeah, because you now have that new system. Anyway, it's not a big deal. I can rent it. It's like $3 to rent stuff on Amazon.
Dark Phoenix says Red Davis was June of that year, and Far From Home was July. So we do have to do Dark Phoenix first.
Cool. That's something.
Well, that makes me happy, though, because it means we can put a better movie sandwiched between those, because I did not want to end out with 2 not good X-Men movies. Like, it'll be, and I mean, like, Far From Home's, got its issues for me, but, like, it'll be nicer putting that in between them.
That's true. And New Mutants in August of 2020.
4 years after it was supposed to come out. Or whatever. 3 or 4. Long enough that they couldn't do reshoots because the actors were all too old.
I don't know what to think about that. I have not seen that. I know nothing about it. I haven't.
I almost want you to blind watch it. I almost want you to not even see it ahead of time.
I just have nothing to say when I'm doing that, though.
You might not have anything to say after you've seen it.
I can at least make fun of the things that are wrong with it.
That's true. It's so dull.
Stephen Murphy says, I thought DJ was honestly kidding there for a minute, pretending Dark Phoenix didn't exist. Yeah, I'll go with that.
Have you seen Dark Phoenix?
Oh, I haven't seen either of
Oh,
them.
you haven't seen that either. Maybe you said that and I missed it. I'm sorry. That's really funny.
I had no interest by that point.
Oh, that's completely fair.
Apocalypse destroyed any... Yeah.
God, Apocalypse was so much worse than I remembered it. I had that whole, like, this is nothing experience, and then when I wrote about it, I was like, as I'm writing, I've never been more angry, where I was just like, God, and then there's this, and then there's this, and oh no!
I love this expression from Shabaka's lover. Far From Home doesn't get enough crap. It's usually enough credit, but he's on the other side.
People do not complain enough about this movie.
I think I'll have complaints about it.
I feel that way about Apocalypse now. I don't think Apocalypse gets enough crap.
I'm interested to go back to this. Haven't gone back to it since the theater. Enjoyed it while I was watching it, but immediately after thinking about it, I really didn't like it. So I'm interested to go back and knowing what I know now, see if I like it better.
Bro Heath, considering Black Widow will be on Disney Plus, would you guys consider doing a Marvel Mania special for it a month or two after it releases? Probably not. I think I'd rather just make it one of the first things in the next batch. It won't actually be the first thing, because if we do what we're talking about doing, because we're talking about putting the Disney Plus shows in there. And that's part of why I wouldn't do it either, because it comes later in the sequence now. Because we're going to do WandaVision first if we do the current plan. And I don't want to... I mean, we need to cap this off at some place and start getting back to regular programming. Like, I don't want Marvel Mania to be a thing that we try to keep forcing to go for as long as possible. I like the idea of doing it in phases, in batches. Let's put some time in between it, go back and try some other stuff. We are taking ideas for other potential manias. We're not promising we'll ever do another one, but if anybody gives us something that we just can't refuse, we may at some point come in and do another mini mania, or a longer one, depending on what it is. But
yeah, and I need to send you that list. I wrote down a list that show everyone.
Thank you, because I did not see a lot of those comments. Yeah, was there anything great?
I don't know. I can't remember at this point. That was a few shows ago already. But
yeah,
I'll send you the list and we can talk about it. But yeah, I'm glad that we had a little break last year and that we have a clear point that we can cut Marvel Mania off, and then we can pick up with WandaVision and Black Widow and Falcon and Winter Soldier and all that in a few years.
And I also like the idea of ending it off on a not MCU thing, because from now on everything will be. Yeah. We'll never have another Marvel thing that's not MCU, with the exception of possibly Sony Spider-Man, unless that ends up counting retroactively, which it looks like it will. So...
Or, yeah, we'll have Morbius someday. Someday Morbius will find its way on a Marvel Mania.
It'll be like New Mutants, where it'll come out like 5 years after it was shot.
It'll be in Marvel Mania 6. Marvel Mania Phase 6.
All right, guys, we're going to get going. Thanks a lot for watching. Hope you had a good time. We certainly did. And we will see you again next week with more programming. I'm going to take the rest of the week off now. I've got a lot of stuff around the house and at home to do. And I've been writing feverishly for 10 straight weeks with Rewinds. I'm going to take a week off. And next Monday, we'll come back with regular stuff again. Probably Star Trek Club that night. Definitely a new... Captain Logan show starting next Tuesday, and After Dark will come back next Thursday, so just a real short break, and then we'll be back with you guys for all kinds of other stuff. I may get a couple of other pre-made videos up this week, so you may see a couple of things, but I won't be doing live shows for the rest of the week at the very least, and requests and stuff. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate you guys. This was a lot of fun. And DJ, thank you, man. This batch of Marvel Mania has been so much fun, and I could not have done it without you, obviously.
Yeah, Marvel Mania! Bring it back. Bring back Marvel Mania.
Yay! I was Captain Logan. That was DJ Martinez. He's losing his mind now. He's all spring break! I don't know.
I just need sleep. I'll be fine.
That's I hope so, man. I hope I haven't destroyed your brain.
Cat broke my brain.
All right, later, folks.